Open your minds.
Houses of power. Houses of power. Houses of power. Houses of power.
And so a community is where you control your police, you control your commerce, you control your education, you control your house. We don't control none of that. We live in a hood. Huh? Well, what about the Negroes that get out? Oh, well, say, my cousin, they say he's a multi-millionaire, almost got $1 billion.
The Proper Thought
3
Series.
PhDs, working on 2 more. Driving down the street in Chicago in his Rolls Royce, enjoying himself, and he hears these sirens and look through the mirror and see this cop car flashing lights. He squeezed the steering wheel, man. Heart beats fast. Because he knows the plight of a Negro, what it could be. And then when that cop car passed him by, he said, thank God he wasn't after you in the first place, punk. That Negro thing you can't get away from. It's universal. They wasn't coming after you. With all your millions, with your Rolls Royce, with your PhD, didn't help. That's the hood. Why do you think you never pick up the paper to read over and over and see white families travel? You think of the thousands of black cops in America. Why don't you see white families crying as black cops shot my loved one 42 times in the back of the head? Why do you think black cops don't do that? You think they're more spiritual? Think they're better? No! They got enough sense to know that white folks ain't gonna tolerate it. And I will stop in our neighborhood when we decide we will not tolerate it. Now, if we was organized, which is hard to organize people who are just gonna run crazy and you don't know you're crazy. But if we were, with the money we have, and the many people who would come to our aid that don't know what it's like to be a Negro, and we said, if we said, look, we saying, if we don't get a federal law to deal with police brutality, that anytime a cop or anybody carry a gun, have to have a license just like you do to drive a car. And if you use it wrongly, you'll lose your license. And if it's upheld, you can never work again as a cop or a store guard or a private detective. How do you get Congress to push that through? Well, you take your economic power and you call on your friends, black, white, young and old, and say, this coming Christmas, if we don't have a federal law to outlaw police brutality by law, then we call them for a nationwide boycott of Christmas and it'll start on Thanksgiving. Well, let me tell you what that means. 79% of all retail in America happens between Thanksgiving and Christmas. People stay in business all year, lose money just for Christmas, huh? Well, what happens now? Saks Fifth Avenue, Toys R Us, Sears and Roebuck, Westinghouse. They will get the bill, and all they got to do is make one phone call and say, Harry, that's the senator, I want that bill pushed through in 3 days. Okay, it's an economic thing. It's that simple. But we have the power, but the system has wiped us out so bad.
Houses of power. Houses of power. Houses of power.
Sam 10 and Lincoln 6. Go ahead. Clear suspect down, 10-4. That's 10-4. The officer's code 4. We have one suspect that's been shot.
Open your minds. And peace, folks. Welcome back to another edition of the Proper Thought Series right here on the old T.P.O.T. YouTube page. I'm your host, X, of course, but you knew that already. That's why your black asses are here. Tonight, special show tonight, because y'all know we're mixing it up a little bit over here on the T.P.O.T. YouTube page. We're We're going to go with a blast from the past. Someone that we haven't had on for quite some time, as y'all can see. Move this. Like the mic to look like they're talking on it. As y'all can see, the one and only Lady Ruby is here tonight. But y'all know before we get started, I always like to come out the gate thanking you good folks for your likes, your shares, your subscriptions, your views, and of course, your hard-earned pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, and 50-cent pieces, because I realize you don't have to do it, man. You don't have to watch these damn streams. You don't have to share these videos, like them. You don't have to do none of that shit, but y'all choose to do so. And you definitely don't have to drop your hard-earned coins on this platform, but you continue to choose to do so. And I want y'all to know, man, that I don't take it lightly, because I don't take you good folks lightly. I'm humbled. I'm honored. I'm appreciative, man. And I thank all of y'all, man. I thank all of y'all for hanging out, and sticking with this platform, man. Good, bad, ugly, indifferent, all of that, man. I just want y'all to know, man, that I appreciate all of you. But before we get started, I also want to give y'all some program notes, because we got a special guest coming through next week. The one, the only, Dr. Lorenzo T. Neal will be in the house for a special edition of Ask the Doc. So mark your calendars for that. It's going to be a really, really good show. And a good doc will be in here, and we'll be talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly of the Black church. So you don't want to miss that one. And he'll be taking questions too, because y'all know that is Ask the Doc. Then the next night, my man, the one and only KIT brother, Keep It Techie, will be here, and he will be talking all things tech. So make sure you have your black behinds here both days next week, the 17th and the 18th, right here on the T.P.O.T YouTube page. You Negroes know. Yeah. So make sure you're here, man, for that. But without further ado, let me bring in my folk, the one and the only Lady Ruby.
Good evening, Brother X. Lovely to be here again. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, Lady Ruby, what's good with it, man? It's been a while. Well, it hasn't been that long, because you was up here a little while back, but not a long
Yes.
time. You was up here doing battle with Lady Jessica.
Yes, that's right. I came up to try to spark the debaters in there. They were sitting silently watching. Yeah. I heard I inspired a couple good people to come up, so that's good. So,
Absolutely. For those of you who don't know, I'm gonna give y'all a little history lesson about Lady Ruby. As far as the T.P.O.T YouTube page goes, Lady Ruby is probably the first female YouTuber that I had any quote unquote interaction with, folks. When I first came onto YouTube back, I think it was like 2015 or something like that. I hadn't had any contact with any YouTubers, really, female YouTubers, outside of the people who were in my team. And Lady Ruby was the first female that I actually kind of hooked up with, on YouTube. So she's been around this channel a long, long time, y'all, like damn near since its inception and shit. So, I just figured I would throw that in there, a little T.P.O.T fun fact for y'all. But yeah, I wanted you to come on tonight because, see, I was sitting, and I know this is gonna sound old and old fashioned to y'all, but I'm gonna tell you black asses anyway. I was going through some pictures, right? And I had seen a couple pictures of my mom, my two grandmothers, and it put me in the mind of, because I start thinking, not so much as my mom, but I looked at my grandmother's picture, and I was thinking, damn, they don't make, women like this anymore. What's good, brother Perfect Black? I see you up there, brother. And I thought to myself, I was like, damn, they don't, women like this aren't really around anymore, as much as they were back then. So I said these were the quote unquote classic women. And I was going to do a stream about that. I was actually going to do a pre-recorded video. And then, you came to mind, classic Ruby, all that shit came to mind. So I said, I'm gonna hit Lady Ruby up and see if she wants to, come on and talk about it. Cause see me, I have my idea of, what a classic man is, what a classic car is. And by the way, speaking of, hold on a second, Lady Ruby. Okay. By the way, speaking of classic cars, if anyone out there has the old 1970 Oldsmobile 442 laying around, or you have the 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle, I will gladly not only give you cash for it, I will give you my left leg and my right arm. I'll cut them off for you tonight. All I need is you can take the right arm and take the left leg so I can still drive and lean. All right. So if you got either of those classic cars laying around, hit OX up. But anyway, yeah, I got to thinking, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna bring Lady Ruby on and see if she want to talk, see if she want to talk about it. So let me start by asking you first. Mm-hmm. What, because I know you know more about it than I do, what would be considered a classic woman? And good look on that Cash App, brother Deshaun. I ain't forget about you, man. What in your mind is a classic woman, Lady Ruby?
Okay. And I will say there is a slight difference between what you would say is a traditional woman and what is a classic woman. Because a traditional woman, there's like a million different like little rules that we're going to add in there as far as what the traditional type of woman does based on your culture, right? A classic woman, it's kind of like a classic dress, right? A classic dress you can buy in 1940 and it's still relevant and beautiful and timeless in 2021, right? So a classic woman then. Classic woman is the kind of woman as far as her behavior and demeanor, she's feminine, she's graceful, she's a little bit demure, but there's something appealing that still kind of draws you in with her eye. She's conservative with the way she dresses, the way she speaks, the way she behaves in general, right? I mean, her personality can be anywhere, but she's conservative with it. If she's bubbly, she's not too in your face with it. She's there. You notice her, you appreciate her. Without her having to like scream it in your face. She's the kind of woman who she could be any style of dress, but again, it's that kind of conservativeness where she's going to go for a little bit of sexy without scandal or skank to it. She's regal, she's poised, she's well spoken. She's the type of woman who can cook. Obviously, I mean, we've got to throw that in there. Doesn't matter what culture we're talking about. She's the kind of woman who can cook and not just like throwing some chicken fingers into the oven, right? She's the kind of woman who knows how to cook a 4-course meal, and she knows how to get up early to cook her man a homemade breakfast from scratch. She's the type who knows how to make a pie from scratch, cake from scratch, sweet desserts like that. She's the kind of woman who has that kind of mothering nature within her where, children flock to her and because of the energy that she's emitting. And at the same time, men are comfortable around her and tend to want to be around her too. And other women, now see, it depends, right? Depends on where they're coming from. Depends on if we're in competition or not. But generally, if you're talking about the women who are older or younger than her, they flock to her too because they appreciate the energy, right? So it's kind of like it can be a lot of different things. You know, you can add some different spins based on culture, but I would say in general, that's kind of like the bare bones of it all.
Okay. That being said, do you think many of them exist today?
No, it's antiquated, right? So especially if you're talking about the millennial and younger generations, it's antiquated. It's like that's like old and stuffy and like something you play dress up for a day because you know there's some type of 20s cocktail party theme or something, right? Like people don't really behave like that in real life. You know, you might take a couple elements that you like from the classic woman. You might want to have the energy of the classic woman, but when you're talking about as a whole package, definitely not.
So when you hear, when you hear the talk of, what brothers, I guess, chase nowadays or want nowadays, does that fit the description? I mean, is that, or is that more of the traditional? Can they be described as traditional as opposed to classic?
Yeah, I would say more so like when we're talking about, say, in this space and the women that they're describing here that they wish we had more of, they're talking more of the traditional woman, right? Because they're thinking on a cultural level and they're thinking sometimes really going far, far back into history, right? As far as being, well, you're submissive and I'm not trying to be like dismissive, but barefoot and pregnant, and that's kind of your role. You take care of your man, you take care of the kids, you take care of the home. All of that other stuff is not really that important to you because your priority is your family and that's it. And I think that that falls more under traditional.
Hmm. Well, if people in general, especially when we talk about black folks, I mean, we're probably looking to be more traditional anyway, right? Not
Mhm.
necessarily classic. People refer to me many times as like a classic man because I like old trucks, I like old cars, I like old shit. So
Mhm.
when people, they say that I'm, like a classic guy, because I like old shit. But I just think I like old shit because I'm old. That's why I like
Mhm.
old cars and shit like that because I'm an old person. But
Mhm.
people will label you as a classic person if you kind of like the older kind of stuff or the traditional stuff, like you're
Mhm.
saying. So
Right.
is it that you have to be do you have to be older to be considered a quote unquote classic person? Is that the same way with you girls? Like, do you have to be older to be considered like a classic person?
Not definitely not. I mean, if you think about it, kind of like the traditional woman and the classic woman, they're not so two separate things that a classic woman is not also traditionally minded, right? In general, actually, what you're really looking at with traditional mindsets these days, a classic woman is the type of woman that, as a single woman, men want to marry when they have that traditional mindset themselves, right? And she becomes the traditional woman. She becomes the traditional wife when she, embraces her role of being a wife, right? As a single woman, she's classic, right? So you can actually find classic women of every age category, technically, right? But that's kind of like what we would call, say, wife material, right? That's what we're saying, women who are already wives while they're single because they were born and bred for it. They were raised that way. They've been training because they had parents and grandparents who trained them to think in certain ways and to move in certain ways and to carry themselves in certain ways based on certain belief systems. So it's just more the fact that we have less and less women who are being raised in that way. So you have less available in the younger populations, but it's not necessarily an age, because let's be real. We all know some older women who also would not qualify as classic or traditional, right? So it's not an age thing, it's a mindset thing, and it's a belief system thing, I think.
Oh, you mean to tell me those 55 and 60-year-old women on Facebook and Snapchat showing their butt cheeks? You mean to tell me those are not traditional women?
Shocking, right? I know,
No,
shocking.
no way, no way, no way that that's that that's not traditional. Is
Oh.
have have do you think, in your opinion, do you think that the quote unquote, because what's the definition of classic? If you look up classic, it's probably, matter of fact, let me see definition. The definition of
Mhm.
classic.
Yes, sir. Bring it up. I use this
Let me
definition when
see.
choosing it for my username. So let's go.
Let's see. What's the definition of classic? Now, according to Google, the all-seeing and the all-knowing, it is an adjective judged over a period of time to be of the highest quality and outstanding of its kind,
Mhm.
remarkably and instructively typical. So that's pretty vague. But if you if you're going to put that definition on a person, that strikes me as someone who's, a person with some type of class, obviously some type of traditional, thing with them, whatever those things are. That's what comes to mind. Because when I think about a classic woman, I think about a traditional woman. I go all the way back to like my grandmoms, the
Mhm.
way my grandmother was, it baked all the time, cooked all the time, um, always home, taking care of kids, all that kind of shit. I don't even think like that when I think about my moms, because my
Mm.
mom's was a stay-at-home mom up until I was about 9. And
Mhm.
when one of my grandmothers came to live with us, my mom's worked. She was the bus driver, and she worked up until the time I was 9 until she retired. So
Mhm.
when you think about the quote unquote classic woman, they don't necessarily do that, right? Are they
Right.
are they more traditional? Or are they the ones who are home and taking care of the kids and doing all that kind of crap?
Well, they have traditional values. So think about, for example, Claire Huxtable. Claire Huxtable is a classic woman, right? She has
Mm-hmm.
traditional values, right? She fulfills the role of being a traditional wife and mother, but she also works, right? But you look at the way she carries herself. You look at the way that she cares for her husband and children. The like when you think about her as an image as a construct, right? She's the classic woman. You don't necessarily have to be staying at home in order for you to be traditionally minded. Your kids, your husband, your household, those roles that you need to fulfill, they are your priority, right? And so you make sure that those things are taken care of, right? But you also go out there, you pursue other things. You don't allow your job outside, relationships with friends or whatever else you're doing to impact what you've got going on at home, or hurt it in any way, because you do have traditional beliefs, right? And so that would be like, for example, within this culture, a big difference between the traditional woman and the classic woman.
Hmm. Well, brother Charles, shout out to brother Charles Merchant. He says Claire Huxtable was a feminist.
Oh, please.
Um,
Oh,
so
please.
so the classic women are not feminist, right? They're not feminists. They are far
No,
removed from feminism, right?
right.
Far removed.
Far, far removed. Yes.
So do you believe that the Claire Huxtable model was a feminist, like brother Charles is saying? You believe that?
Absolutely not. No, I believe, you know what, and I guess, you could always try to look at things in retrospect with different eyes. I know for me growing up and watching her or watching Vivian Banks, and listening to the stories that they built along the way. So that way you listen to the story of that relationship between that man and wife and that family being built. And what you heard were, no, they were going out together as a couple, for example, to fight for the rights of Black people. But she wasn't out there burning her bra. She wasn't out there saying, as a woman, I don't need to settle down. I don't need to get married. I don't need no man. She wasn't out there doing that. Right. In fact, if anything, she was working at a diner and something else while her husband got through medical school. Right. And once he was employed, then she went and pursued her law degree. Because why? Because her husband's practice was the priority, right? And she had her children. Her children were the priority. She didn't go back working full time until they didn't need her in the same way, right? And even then, her hours were different. She was always home when the kids came home, right? So you could try to label that as feminism, I guess, because she's working, but realistically, it doesn't make a lot of logical sense, right? Feminism, especially in that era, in that time, or the time she would have been growing up, was literally trying to tell women that, all of those old standards, all those old priorities, needing a husband, having a bunch of kids, taking care of the home as a wife, and making your husband a sandwich when he hungry and stuff. Nah, that's old. And she did all of that, right? Because she was still traditionally minded.
So you if you're going to be classic, you have to be traditional, right?
I would say, yeah, you'd have to have traditional values, right?
Okay.
If you can be classy, right? In a way, and not have traditional values. But if you're a classic, that means you're timeless. That means that you need to have been relevant and desirable 100 years ago. And in 100 years from now, people are still going to look at you as an archetype and say, damn, that is one classic woman.
So if the classic women of yesterday or yester year or yester month, whatever you want to put on it, do you think that they would be? Do you think that they would thrive well today? Um, or would they be used? Would they be used by dudes who could come in there and kind of slip in there and take advantage of the fact that they're classic, they have these traditional values and all that kind of stuff? Would they fare well today if you took the if you
Mhm.
took them if you took the quote unquote classic women from 100 years ago and put them in 2021? How would they fare today?
Ooh, to be honest with you, I don't think they would fare very well. And the reason why I say that, it's a couple reasons, right? Now, the first thing is, if you think about 100 years ago, you didn't have to consider whether a man was marriage minded, whether a man had certain priorities and responsibilities in his head as far as when you get married, when you do this, when you do that, right? Because it was generalized across the population that everyone did the same thing around the same time, right? So when a guy came looking for you, that means he's ready to court for marriage, right? That's not the case today. So yeah, I can absolutely see that becoming problematic. You go a little bit further up in history, well, you'd be expecting that if he slept with you and got you in trouble, he'd marry you. Not the case today. So there's a bunch of I guess assumptions you could have made 100 years ago that you can't make today, because women more often than not are not judged as individuals, especially not when you're first meeting them. You're kind of judging them by the majority, right? So people are going to assume that you as a woman tend to think like the majority of the population, and they're going to treat you that way. And those women wouldn't really be prepared for that for the most part. So I think that they would have some issues with that, certainly. And of course, no one would have taught them the discernment to look for the marriage-minded man. How do you look for a marriage-minded man in the 21st century, when everything's online dating and online this and that and clubs and whatever, all those things that didn't really exist back then? I don't know how they
Hmm.
would do it. I know that a lot of women I know that are more classic and more traditionally minded had a harder go of dating overall, because where do you meet people if you're not out there bar hopping and club hopping, and you know the internet dating thing kind of creeps you out, and you're not out there basically showcasing everything for the world to see, because that's how people are getting attention. You're not pancaking your face with makeup. You don't have the fancy this and that and blah blah blah. Just all the stuff that you see out there, it's so flashy, and a lot of classic women kind of fall into the background, and fail to be seen because they're not out there to be seen. So it is a kind of an issue with the current day classic woman, and they know what they're up against.
And when you think about it, when you think about the quote unquote classic woman or classic girl, she's probably not out there quote unquote looking, for men like that anyway. She's kind of waiting to waiting to be pursued,
Mm-hmm.
right? She's not out there, looking for men
Right.
or making herself available to men. She's actually for waiting for a man to come, I don't know, holler at her or whatever, right?
Yep, exactly. I mean, I have a friend, I'll give you an example. So I have a friend who only got married at 38 years old, and she was a virgin when she got married. And she's a great woman. She has such a big, open, loving heart. She's so caring. She's feminine, she's helpful, she's submissive, she's everything that you could possibly want, right? But what's a big thing standing against a real virgin? Not like a born again virgin, not someone who's willing to give it up if you talk, to them long enough. No, she was really waiting for marriage. It was her belief system. She wasn't going to just throw that away. And in a society like today, where literally no one's a virgin by the time they hit 21, it's saying, well, I'm sorry, I'm waiting till marriage. You get written off pretty quickly by the majority. Why? Because these days we have these belief systems like, well, you got to try the car before you buy it. And, why buy a cow? I get so much milk for free. So, the decisions of the majority are impacting the minority. So, on one side, we want the minority group to grow. We want there to be more traditionally minded women and more classic type women, more women who would say, hey, listen, no, I'm not spreading my legs to everyone. But at the same time, there's the trade off. There's my friend who is a catch, didn't get married until she was 38 years old, because as soon as she said no sex until marriage or virgin for real, a lot of guys didn't even try to give a second date a chance, because they can be out there sleeping with someone and seeing if they're right for them.
So, well, I guess that would be a trait of the quote unquote classic classic woman too, right? She's not laying up and sexing with every damn body.
Mm-hmm.
She's actually looking, quote unquote, looking to be married, looking to be hitched, right?
Yes, exactly. And she dates intentionally. She's not out there because she's looking for validation and attention and love in all the wrong places and replacing daddy issues and trying to scratch an itch or whatever. I hear so many different reasons for why this free sex lifestyle has gotten to where it has. But that's not what she's out there doing, right? A guy asks for her number or whatever, she makes it pretty plain from the beginning. Like, I'm not here to just waste my time. Like, if you're not here to date intentionally as well, right? If you're not here saying, hey, I'm looking to vet you basically to see if you're the right wife for me, because I'm here to vet you to see if you're the right husband for me. The average classic woman, that's what she's doing. She's only doing that. She's not going to be doing the wasting her time stuff, because she could be focusing on other things, on self improvement, on nesting, really, on growing other social bonds that are going to be useful once she's, raising a tribe of her own, right? So that's what she'll be focusing on, not out there looking for anybody to give her some type of attention.
Well, we have a question from the one and only RBR. And I appreciate
Hey,
that.
RBR.
I appreciate that $5, brother RBR. He says, my question is, would there be a difference between a classic black woman and the pink pill level up classic sellouts who want to be white?
Well, to be honest with you, I'll say this. I don't listen to Pink Pill or that general rhetoric at all. But yeah, there's definitely a difference, because the thing is like, even with that level up mentality, right? Again, classic women date intentionally, and their priority is to be married. Their priority is to have children. Their priority is to build and help their husband build a legacy, to add to that legacy, right? So that's their priority above all else. So they're not looking to monkey branch from one person to the next one and level up some more and level up. No, because what they're trying to do, and this is from the youngest age possible, right, is their intention is to marry and to inspire their husband and to support him, so that way the two of them together level up. And they're leveling up. That leveling up does not mean to them going and finding someone who's making more money. It's about being settled and happy, content in the place that they are, and committed and devoted to the husband they have chosen, right? And inspiring him, because she sees that he can reach the moon, and she's going to do everything in her power to support him getting there, and he will. Right. This is why I use the Claire and Vivian. There's a bunch of those where they tell the stories of what did these wives do to help their husbands achieve the success, achieve all the greatness that they did. Right. And they tell the stories here and there. Right. And that's what those women did. They didn't care that they were living in a roach motel at first. They're young teens still in college or whatever. They didn't care. She didn't care if she had to work 2 jobs or whatever, because she knew her husband was going to be great one day. And he was. They end up in a Bel Air mansion, right? So that's how the classic woman is thinking. She's not thinking about trying to find something better over there where the grass might be greener or whatever, because she knows she can make the grass over here like the most lush, beautiful lawn on the planet.
Well, I'm about to ask a crazy question. Where do they come from? Do they come from other classic women? Do they have to be built? Do they have to be made? Because I know they're not born, so I know they probably have to be trained. Now the question is, does that training come from the quote unquote classic mama, or does it come from grandmama? Does it come from having a father in your life? I mean, where does that where do those values come from?
Mm. On one side, my mind immediately jumped to an exception here, right? So I was thinking about my mother, who's my grandmother. My grandmother was the kind of woman who the whole world was in love with when she was younger. Very beautiful woman, and she very much took advantage of that. Very much liked male attention. Very much liked to get men to do things for her. Right? This is not with putting out. I mean, just generally, she liked to flirt and bat her eyes and get her way. My mother was nothing like that. My mother was very classic. In fact, most of what I know about some of these things is my mother teaching me, right? So she didn't learn from my grandmother, right? It wasn't modeled really by my grandmother. Where did my mother learn it from? I've asked her this, and she said that, it was from her observing what not to do. Right, from my grandmother, from aunties, from other people in society, and what she didn't want to be. So on one side, I will say, by and large, the far majority need to have this modeled for them, and they need to be trained into it. And so why you train someone, but if you're not modeling it, right, if they don't see the benefit, if they don't see why it's better, if you're not explaining it to them and constantly rearing them in a particular way, then they might not understand. And I think the majority falls into that category. And then you do have the other category, though, women who are classic women. And when you look at all of their roots, you're like, how the heck, man? How does she manage? Right. And those are the women who go the opposite way, right? And they don't like the mothers, the aunties, the female examples they have around them. And they don't like the lives that those women are living or experiencing. And so they take the opposite road. So in a way, it's being modeled for them, but what's being modeled is what not to do. So, either extreme. I still think modeling is incredibly important and rearing is incredibly important. Um, the perception of the beholder is going to dictate whether they can use that in a positive or a negative light and whether they want to, right? Because to some extent, and we know this is true too, we have women who come from amazing families, amazing women, but that pull of what Western society can give them for being an Instagram thought or whatever is just too great for them, right? They realize they're beautiful. They realize, people have been focusing on their tata since they were 13 and now they're 19. They want to make something from that or whatever, right? And that's part of my issue with whole culture and Western society these days, is that the norm and what seems to be at least more immediately beneficial is thought culture, right? It's not the culture these days where these classic women are the ones most heavily and highly rewarded the most quickly. And so, that's difficult for especially the teenage mind to grasp, right? Because teenagers are very impulsive. And so they jump on the impulse because, they're not able to think through consequences as quickly. Now they're past 25, their brains have finished developing, and oops, oh my, in retrospect, I shouldn't have had those two kids with those, two different guys and blah, blah. I now get it. I now see it. And I don't know how to go back and retrain myself, right? So, I do think that, modeling is important. The majority are going to need some type of modeling and some type of training. If they're not getting it from home, then they need an elder woman of some sort, right? It doesn't have to be like a grandma or an auntie. It could just be from a course that you sign up for, or someone you connect with over the internet or something that models it for them and explains why is this better? Why do I make these choices? And how am I thinking this through?
Oh, good look from my man, brother Kenny Conjo with the $7 super chat. He says, salute T.P.O.T. Shout out to my sister, Classic Ruby. It's good to see her up there. Evening greetings, everyone. We'll listen in the background. Brother Kenny, man, I'm looking at your picture, man. You look like you done shaved off like 15 years, man. You look young as hell in that picture, man. Yeah, man. You looking young as hell, boy. Shit, you looking like one of them college brothers and shit. Like you done walked into a time machine type shit. But I appreciate that, man. Appreciate that $7, brother Kenny.
Oh, he kind of reminds me of Kirk Franklin now for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah, man. He look young. He look young as hell in that picture. But do you well, okay. You said that the classic women have a tendency to they have a tendency to look for marriage. So what's going to happen is, are those the women that are getting married? Because only 1 out of 4 black women get married anyway, right? So you talking somewhere between 25, 30%, somewhere, and that's where it kind of hovers. So all of those women in that 25, 30%, whatever it is, are those the classic women that are getting married? Are those the women that are getting married today, the quote unquote classic women?
I wouldn't say that they're the only women that are getting married. I would say that they're the only women who are staying married, or they're the far large majority of women that are staying married, right? Because we have a massively, wickedly high divorce rate, right? So, and especially in our community, it's even higher. So when you look at that, then, well, classic women were divorcing at such a high rate and they were the only ones who were getting married, well, what's the benefit, right? So I would say that the majority of the women that are still married after 5 years, 10 years, 25 years, 50 years, those are classic women or traditional women.
So the other 70-75%, they just they
They
couldn't
just a rip raff? No, no,
they,
no.
they couldn't cut the muster, so they're just out. But does that happen though? Does the quote unquote classic woman find herself on the outs,
Yep.
nowadays, because brothers may not be marrying the quote unquote classic woman? They may be marrying the Instagram model, or the Instagram thought, or whatever she is.
Yep. And another problem that the classic woman has in this day and age, and like I said, if the woman from this day and age is having this issue, man, can't imagine for the ones born 100 years ago. But some of these classic women, they are falling into certain traps that are not great, right? Because again, they are being trained from a great grandma to a grandma to a ma to them that, when you find a man, or a man finds you rather, right? And he's sweet, he's respectable, he got a job, he's got some ambition, y'all have similar life goals and values, that's good. And so, you just, yeah, I'm gonna marry this guy, I'm gonna have his kids, we're gonna be great, right? Because we have similar values, and that's what you think. Not understanding, though, that, right, not every guy is going to have those values. Not every guy is going to, because just like a bunch of women have not had this modeled for them, a bunch of men haven't either, right? We have a very, very high single parent rate, right? Not just single mothers, right? Because we do have some single fathers, but we don't have a lot of couples anymore. We don't have a lot of these 25 or 50-year marriages in the community at all. A lot of people don't even have any of these in their family. And so you have these priorities, you have these belief systems, you think, well, hey, it's marriage for better or worse. That's what we do, right? But he doesn't necessarily think that. You don't know. Does he come from 17 people and all of them are divorced? The second the littlest thing goes wrong, does he come from a situation where, he's already been divorced? I mean, you don't know. And a lot of classic women don't necessarily vet these things, because they make a lot of assumptions, right? They do. And they just take it for granted that if a particular type of man approaches them, right, regardless of other factors, right, because she's willing to build with him, right? It's not like she's looking for, well, he's got to be established here and he's got it this and he's got it that. She's willing to build with this man, right? She's willing to support this man as he builds his legacy. So she's not able, because like I have a friend, for example, and she was like, oh, he's got so much potential. Well, you've heard that potential conversation before. So much potential. Yeah, but does he have motivation? Right? Does he actually want to reach anywhere? Or like, is he content with you working two jobs to keep the household afloat? And, yeah, one day he's going to finish that degree, but right now he's just looking for the perfect job, I guess. And, he's really motivated to, like, mow the lawn or whatever, and blah, blah, blah. Well, you come to find out he didn't have a man in the household, and he wasn't sure exactly that he actually even had a role in the household. And then at that point, who does he turn to? His father? Well, his father wasn't around. His mother doesn't know nothing. And then there you go. So you do get classic women caught up in some of these traps where they're not sure what questions to ask or what they should be vetting. And they can't turn to the majority of their friends, because the majority of their friends don't think like they do, right? They think like in this, like RBR pointed out, right? With that, oh, I'm going to divest, or I'm going to this, or I'm going to that. And they're thinking in so many dysfunctional ways, or girl, just give him some, or, all of that. So they don't really have anyone to turn to. And so as a result, it's kind of like a lonely life in a way. When you're a classic woman or a traditionally minded woman, it's a very lonely life in a lot of ways, because society doesn't cater to it. And the average is nothing like you, and they don't even get it.
So can they still be considered classic black women if they're dating, white boys or Latinos or Asians or whatever, can they still be considered the classic woman?
I don't
Or
really like to.
well, let me rephrase. Let me rephrase that.
Okay.
Should the quote unquote classic woman stick with her own race? Does that make
Okay.
her classic because she stays with her own race?
I will say this, that if you are intentionally chasing another race to reject your own, and stereotyping your own, that literally makes you not a classic woman, no matter what other factors you have. Right now, I do look at now interracial dating is not for me. But if you are born and raised somewhere like here, for example, where we're like 3% of the entire population of Canada. So if you now, just based on proximity, right, you're born and raised around, all white people, there's no black people anywhere, and you happen to fall in love with a non-black person, you didn't go chasing it. You're not rejecting your own. You're not sitting there and making up all these excuses. It just happened to have happened. Could that woman be classic? I will say yes. But if you're chasing and rejecting, no, because the classic woman is not out there about trying to reject or hate on her own, trying to judge people and things that she clearly doesn't know or understand. Because if she knew or understood, the overall black man, then she could never say that they are all, they all ain't shit, they all dusty, they all this, they all that. Because remember, she's using completely different traits and values to evaluate men, right? She's looking for a man who is husband minded, who's traditionally has a lot of traditional values, who is looking to build a family, who's a family man, right? She's probably more likely than not, the classic woman is not looking for a super high earner, right? Because super high earners are never home. They're always working. And she wants a family. She wants a father who is present and available for the kids. And she wants a great relationship with the husband, a husband that, she can cater to, devote herself to, that she can bond with and love, right? So she has completely different values than a lot of the people you have out here talking about interracial swirling and all of that foolishness, right? Because she's actually being logical and she wants to make more of her, right? And to that extent, if you want more of you, you can't wash out your bloodline because that's not you anymore.
Hmm. So, well, I know you're in Canada, right? So, are there the quote unquote is Canada the land of the classic women or no?
Well, I used to say yes, but then lately, y'all have found some Canadian women and put them on y'all streets and stuff, and I've been like, oh my god, that woman can't be from Canada. She's from Canada. Okay, she can't be from my province, Ontario. Oh, she's from Ontario. Damn, really? Where? So,
around the block.
right?
She's not from my neighborhood. Oh, she's from around the corner. God damn it.
Damn, right? Who the hell is she? No, she must be partially not black. That's all I had to say. But no, I will say, I think that we have maybe a higher percentage of classic women, especially when we're talking about black women. But that's also because we have a very high percentage of first generation um, born or landed immigrants in this country, right? We don't really have like a largely existing black population here. Most of the black population in Ontario, for example, um, they're all immigrants, all of them. The majority in Ontario are from the West Indies. Some are from Africa. When you're talking about, black folks who were emancipated here and whatever, you're going further east. And so I think based on that, we have a higher percentage because you have a higher percentage of women who have non-Western cultures that they are living by and being reared under.
Hmm. So, Well, okay, we've already established the fact that a lot of the talk that we hear coming from a lot of the females on the internet, we can rule out about 90% of that shit as being classic. So, are there any? Do you think that there's any classic representation? I mean, is there a representation of the quote unquote black woman on the internet anywhere? Not just on YouTube, but like anywhere in media.
Very little. Very, very, very little. And part of the issue is that even when you have classic women, let's use YouTube as an example, since we're all familiar. When you have classic women on YouTube, they aren't really normally speaking about things that appeal to and relate to the classic woman, right? Because the majority are not classic women. And, this is all a game of, you want to have subscribers and likes and have your stuff shared and whatever. So they're normally addressing something that isn't really directly related to the classic woman's concerns and interests. Because, classic woman, she's not out here single, can't find a man and da 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 da, and having all those issues, or oh well, now I don't know what to do with my baby daddy, because she doesn't have those issues. She doesn't have those same struggles and constant concerns. And so YouTube or like social media isn't really the meeting place for the classic woman, because in general, she might come onto YouTube and talk about something else, try to help people get out of where they're at into a more classic or traditionally minded place. I've seen some classic women who forget themselves, and rather than staying in a classic place, have decided they want to roll around in the muck with the non-classic women or people. But what I don't see a lot of is congregation. And I think that the majority, like, I don't even have, I have an Instagram for Classic Ruby, but someone tell me last time I posted anything on it. I don't do Instagram. I don't do any of that. Why? Because it doesn't appeal to me, right? It doesn't speak to me. It doesn't really help me with my particular life and my struggles or my concerns or my interests.
Okay. Well, $5 super chat from Brother L. Nixon. I appreciate that, Brother L. Nixon. He says, "What's going on, X? Hey, Classic Ruby, this woman right here is that woman. Much love to you every time I see you pop up." I know that. Hold on a goddamn second. I noticed that a lot of you brothers that popped up in here because Lady Ruby is here. Y'all don't follow Lady Ruby. Y'all don't follow Lady Ruby over to the channel. I don't mind it, but I'm just letting y'all know I notice it. But carry on.
Hey.
But carry on, Lady Ruby. Carry on. Appreciate that $5, Brother L. Nixon. Appreciate that, brother. But so okay. Now, do you think that because there's such a do you think that that's the underlying thing when it comes to the brothers and women? Because we hear a lot of talk on the internet about women and how fucked up they are, and how they all baby mamas and hoes and all that kind of shit. I go on and on and on with that kind of stuff. But do you think that that's the underlying problem, that there aren't enough classic slash traditional women out there, being produced? Because I think a classic woman is produced. She's not just someone that she ain't some sot, like you said, at 25, and then at 26 she's classic. No, that's not how it works. So I think they are produced. So is that the problem? Is that part of the angst that brothers have concerning women, because there aren't enough of the quote unquote classic women out there to be pursued?
I'll say yes and no. I think part of the issue, though, I'll come back down. Classic woman has a counterpart, and there's not enough of the counterparts out there either, right? Because, women are not being produced or not in a vacuum, right? Overall, and that's why I said when we're looking at the millennial and younger generations, we have a whole bunch of people who are not being born and raised definitely not reared and conditioned into what marriage is, what being a husband is, what being a wife is, what you should expect from either of those things, what you should be looking for in someone. And, or I mean, even just basic understandings about what things like submission means, what leadership means. I mean, you got so much confusion out there these days. So on one side, you will have the men saying, well, there's not enough of that type of woman out there. On the other side, you have the women say there's not enough of the right type of man out there. Well, they're both kind of right? Because we aren't raising these types of individuals. We aren't rewarding them within media or social media, and we aren't recognizing them within media or social media. How often are we putting the classic woman on a pedestal anymore and saying, I'm going to reward that woman above all other types of women, right? I'm going to say, since that's the kind of woman that I want out there, I'm not following any more of these Insta thoughts. I'm not sitting there and shelling out my dough to be on the OnlyFans or blah blah blah. I'm going to spend all my time making posts, not talking about all of the women I don't like, all of the women who don't have those qualities. I'm going to spend all my time, every time I trip over one of the good ones, I'm going to make sure I'm putting her on blast. I mean, how often do we find people have the time or energy to do that? Right. But everyone's got the time or energy to put the ain't shitness on blast. Right. So I think it's kind of like a convoluted issue where on one side, is that an issue? Absolutely, it's an issue, but it's not happening alone. And I've seen a lot of people, right? Now, I can understand this more from the female side, so I'll speak on it. I've seen women who are kind of on the fence. They're just coming into adulthood. They've been the classic woman their whole lives. They have been traditionally minded their whole lives, and it has not rewarded them. They've never been kissed. They've never been on a date. They've never had a guy look at them. They're just not being noticed. There's so much flash around them. They're not being seen. And they start kind of seeing, the road to hell over there, and they see all the benefits that everyone else is getting, and they're getting so much flack from other women, which men don't understand, but women were evolved to want and need the social validation of women. That's how women compete, through gossip and through acceptance and whatever. So, they're kind of like, okay, well, what's the benefit? What's the benefit to not falling off the cliff at this point? And they're not seeing it. And they're not coming across enough of the benefit for them to not just fall off the cliff and say, well, I'll go down the road to hell then. Because people are giving up. Because I mean, it is still a choice. You can be reared however. But ultimately, once you become of age, no matter how strict your parents were, right now it's a choice. And do you want to choose to continue to live the way that you were reared, or do you want to go down another path because it's actually more beneficial and maybe your parents don't really know what they're talking about?
Well, when it comes to, like this YouTube thing, because, we're all on YouTube, you know, you notice, because when you think about, this particular side of YouTube, everybody says sector and space and all that kind of stuff. But, I say this side of YouTube where, there's a lot of dudes, there's mostly men over here on this side.
Mm-hmm.
But some women like yourself are welcomed, into, into the fold, into the conversation, onto the panel. Do you believe it's because these women have the quote unquote classic thing? That's why, they can, kind of be places where other women can't necessarily be, because you kind of know when it comes to this side of YouTube, you kind of know what women you will see on a panel. You can call them out by name. So is it that those women have that particular classic thing about them that allows them to kind of, they can kind of be amongst the brothers?
Oh, yeah. I will say that's definitely a factor. It's a big factor, the global overall of having that classic about them. But I will add to that, because there's one factor that I think trumps all of the others. And the one factor is respect. Being reared in the general concept that not respect is earned, right? So therefore, you don't give no one respect till after they've earned it. Or, well, you only give respect after someone has proven themselves, or you only give respect when da 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 da, right? Someone agrees with you or whatever it is. No, respect is part of what you do for yourself. I give respect to men, and I give them a certain level of deference because they're men. That's not to honor and glorify that individual man, right? That's to honor and glorify myself, right? That's me showing self-love and self-respect, right? Because that's how I was reared, and I chose to hold tight and firm to that concept that I'm going to give people respect because I think it reflects badly on me when I don't. And I think that above all of the other factors, when we're talking about something like YouTube, is going to be the one factor that is going to differentiate the women who are kind of all right over here and the ones who really aren't, right? Because respect goes so far with men. I mean, come on, even from Bible days, they recognize, what did they say? They said, women, respect your husbands, right? And for husbands to love their wives. Now that doesn't mean that women don't need respect and men don't need love. It's just telling you the priority. If we're talking about men here, the number one priority is that a man needs to feel respected. And so I think that is going to be the number one factor that a classic woman has. Just she doesn't have to put it on. It's not like a tensing a muscle. It's not like, oops, well, you can catch her on an off day and that's it. Now she's disrespectful so and so. No, like that's just part of her general makeup, and she does it because otherwise she'll look down on herself as being a disrespectful person, which is not good enough for her. It's not up to her own standards for herself.
So let's talk about you for a minute. Do you consider yourself to be one of these, classic chicks or classic women? Do you consider yourself that?
I give me about 85%, 85% or so. Because I got to be real and honest. Part of what I think makes a classic woman does entail the way that they choose to dress. And present themselves to the world. And, me in the pencil skirts and the cute little respectable heels and the constant, manicured nails, and that part isn't me. I own those clothes for, when I have to wear those clothes, but, I've always been a little bit more of a casual dresser and runners and, what I think is dressy for a regular average day,
Do you dress
probably.
do you dress like a lumberjack? Do you dress like a lumberjack with the jeans and
No,
the flannel shirts? With
no.
the flannel hat to match it.
Hey now, hats are very important to me. They are not flannel. Thank you very much. No, but I guess being a tomboy, I kind of, as I hit my teenage years, I girled it up a little bit more, right? My jeans became more fitted, like flared and whatnot, and my t-shirts became more like baby tees. So they're nice and fitted and whatever. But I may show a little cleavage, and I guess that's girly. Maybe wear some jewelry depending on the day. But I love my running shoes, love my matching hats and stuff like that. So I have more of a kind of like chill style. So I would not classify that as being classic woman.
Yeah.
But other than
Yeah.
that, yeah.
Yeah, because classic women don't do that. Classic women don't show cleavage. They don't they don't do none of that shit, right? They just,
Oh no.
they wear them long dresses that go all the way down to their damn ankles, and
No,
they,
no,
they don't
no,
they don't show
no.
any arm.
No,
Ah!
no. That's a
They,
traditional woman. Okay.
they only wear frocks, that kind of shit, right?
Oh no. See, that's another difference between the traditional woman and the classic woman, right? So traditional woman is very chaste, entirely chaste, right? Whereas in a classic woman, so I'll tell you what my mom taught me. My mom taught me that you can only show off skin, a period, and obviously to a tasteful level, on one part of your body at the time. So if you're going to be showing off leg, right, with a slightly shorter skirt, right? Then that means your cleavage is covered. That means your shoulders are covered and whatever, right? Or if you're going to show cleavage, that means the rest of your skin on your body is covered, right? So it's about you having taste and being selective. You're never ever going too far with it, right? So you might be wearing clothing that is fitted, but it's not showing out no camel toe and da 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 da, right? Because that's always too far, right? So there's levels to this. There's levels to this.
Well, good look on that $5 super chat again, brother L. Nixon. He says, I once helped to promote the wrong women because that's mostly what I saw. Good girls were there, but I picked what I knew. Aggressive black women like mom. Well, you messed up right there, brother L. Nixon, because the last thing you want to do is find a woman who's exactly like these old moms. Yeah, you don't want one like that, even if the mama happens to be your mom. In fact, that's probably the worst person to model a woman after. I'm just saying. I'm just saying, brother L. Nixon. You definitely want to stay away from those who exactly like your damn mama. Trust me, especially if mom was kind of whack. Yeah, if mom was whack, you definitely don't want to be, get women who are just like her. So,
Brother X, if I could point out something, I just want to say something on what L. Nixon said. So here's the thing, and I've seen this in this space. I'm not going to call it any names. I know I don't do that, but I've seen this in this space. So in general, men say they want a classic or a traditional woman, right? They say this. They say that they don't want to be messing with that other kind of woman. They don't tolerate that on their panels, in their chat rooms, blah, blah, blah. Right. And I have seen that. I have been present on panels, okay, where in theory, right, if that's the case, then that means, certain types of behavior would be shut down on a panel, right? You wouldn't even want to listen to that kind of woman. You wouldn't be asking that woman kind of questions, but they will. And so on one side, they don't want to entertain that. On the other side, it's what's familiar to them. It's what they understand. It's what feels the most true, right? And it's what feels like, okay, well, maybe she's a good girl. Even if she's faking and you could tell, everyone else can tell, but in that moment, it feels more real. Why? Because they recognize it from a mom or a sister or a whatever, right? When their mom's being nice, when she's putting on the show for company or whatever, right? And so the problem is, for some men at least, they've never been around a classic woman. They've never been around a woman who actually has traditional values or goals. They've never been around it. And so when they see it in a woman, right, they don't recognize it. And so they automatically write that woman off, right? She's a liar, she's this, she's that. They have all kinds of ways of writing it off. Why? Because they don't recognize it. It feels unfamiliar, and anything unfamiliar kind of feels wrong in a way. And so you see that we do have that issue as well. When something's unfamiliar, how do you just embrace it, right? That's how people get kind of screwed over in a way too, right? Is because they know a lot of people have jumped in and embraced something and they thought, well, it's unfamiliar, so I'm not going to recognize the red flags with this thing, right? They jump into it. They don't recognize the red flags because they don't see it for what it is. And then it bites them in the ass. And then, once bitten, twice shy. And they don't realize it, but they kind of revert backwards. They revert backwards to what they know. And so, this is why I said we need modeling, right? We need modeling in the community of this type of woman who's been married 10, 25, 50 years. We need to see this and be around this and have experiences with these types of couples so that way we can understand what it looks like and it's no longer strange and familiar and scary.
Yeah, either that or open up a damn charm school or some shit like that. Well, they have those. They have charm schools. But we need to open up a few and send some girls there. I mean, sending to me sending women there is pointless because they already grown. So I have a hard time with thinking grown ass people, especially people who done hit 30. It's like it's going to be hard to change these people's thinking. Maybe not all of them, but I believe that the bulk of them, you're not going to be able to change their thinking. Therefore, you're not going to be able to change their freaking behavior. All right. Because you have to change your thinking to change your damn behavior. So I don't believe that the bulk of adults, their behavior will change, especially by the time they're like 30 years old. Forget about it. To me, people that are like 30 and stuck in their ways, you're wasting your time trying to change them. But the children, the little girls, who don't have fathers, because I think that a female is more likely to take on the classic slash traditional ideals if she's being raised by a man. She's probably going to be a little more classic and traditional than her counterparts who didn't have fathers. I believe that. So when you're talking about the girls who don't have fathers, they are the ones that should be sent to the quote unquote charm school or the classic school or the school for traditional girls or whatever the hell you want to call it. They need to be sent there because if they, especially if they got an old mama who ain't worth 2 wood nickels, they definitely need to be sent there. But that's the thing. If they have an old mama who ain't worth 2 wood nickels, old mama probably is not going to send them there. All right. The people who get sent to play to things like charm school or whatever they are probably don't really need it because more than likely they're probably coming from a classic traditional family anyway. That's why they're being sent there in the first place. Charm school is only touching up what's already there. What's your take on that?
Oh, I mean, I agree, definitely. Like my stepmother went to charm school. So charm school is it's not the basics. It's teaching you, given that you've been reared a certain way and you're going to be exposed to certain environments, um, how do you deal with them? So, for example, teaching you about eating with your utensils from the outside in, right? And teaching which each fork and knife and whatever and spoon signifies, and how do you set a proper table, and how do you walk with elegance and grace when you're walking into these galas and whatever where you got to be that kind of wife. So they're not normally teaching you really really basic stuff. They're not teaching you how to already have a certain type of respect, a certain type of attitude, a certain type of belief system. They're teaching you that, given that we already know that you're conditioned into that, so that's cool. Here's how you address that properly. Here's how you say please and thank you in a certain way. Here's how you greet the Prime Minister of Britain when he comes by, right? I mean, they're teaching you a bunch of stuff, saying, well, you already have a foundation. Now, to be fair, do they have beginners charm school? They do. These kids, my stepmother started going to charm school when she was 6 years old, right? So, I mean, this starts early. This type of training and conditioning starts very, very early. So, do they have it for adults? I don't know if you remember Brother X. There was a TV show called Charm School.
Yes.
And
Yes. Yes. I remember.
that ratchet mess called Charm School,
Yes.
right? With all the flavor of love rejects. Now they tried their best to teach those women what to do, and to an extent, I guess they learned certain things. They learned how to walk with a book on their head or set a table or whatever. But the way that they already thought about that type of thing, the way they already thought about conflict or about this or about that, uh, it was always a ratchet mess, right? The second someone says something about you, they looked at you funny, they blah, 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 right? So, I mean, that's part of the issue. This training really does start at home. And without it having started at home or, in youth, how do you retrain adults? well, you can't retrain. I can't retrain adults. Adults have to retrain themselves. And the first step, it's kind of like drugs, right? First step is admitting you have a problem. If you can't admit you have a problem, right, you might not know how to fix the problem, but you have to admit you have the problem, right? And that is where I see the majority are failing overall, is they can't see that they have a problem. And I kind of understand it though, Brother X. Like, I know we don't speak on this side a lot, but here's the thing. If you are, as a woman, right, you have to survive in female society, right? This is something, it's a social, biological imperative that we need to be able to compete, not just compete, but work with and get along with and be accepted by other women. It's literally built into us. Okay. And then we are born and raised into a society where for us to be certain types of traits or personality, personality characteristics, we'll be eaten alive. We will be destroyed. We will be disrespected. We will have people walk all over us. There will be no recourse for us. We will have no allies because we are being seen as too weak. So if that's the case, and that you're kind of growing up in the concrete jungle, well, what do you think, that the concrete jungle raises a bunch of soft people? You think that overall, is it that wrong if all you know how to do is survive, to teach your kids how to survive? You pass down what you know. And unfortunately, the older generation, most of them only know how to survive at best.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. I do think we do need some I do think we need some charm schools, especially in certain pockets of black society, as far as these, girls are concerned, because well, first, they put a lot of focus on young black girls, but I think that the focus is kind of misconstrued. Um, they pay a lot of attention to, they have girls thinking about their image at a very young age. They have them thinking about this crazy damn hair at a very young age. They have them thinking about, appeal at a very young age. Because, man, I can pull up some pictures, man, that'll just make you scream. I had pictures of babies 2 and 3 years old with wigs on. I got, I mean, that kind of stuff. So it's like we're focused on that kind of stuff. Because when you think about young black boys, I mean, you can take a young black boy, and all you really got to do for a young black boy is put a man in his life, and that'll take care of 90% of most things. If you get these young black boys around some men, some decent, constructive, productive men, a lot of these boys won't turn out to be, drug dealers or drug users, or in and out the penitentiary, or in and out the cemetery, in the cemetery. That takes a lot of that away. A man being in a boy's life reduces a lot of that stuff by a very big percentage. Is it foolproof? No. But when you put men in boys' lives, all that BS gets reduced by a tremendous amount. And likewise with little girls. With little girls, it's the same way. I mean, if a little girl has a man in her life, she has a father in her life, I mean, she's less likely to do a lot of that crazy stuff that young girls do, as far as the drinking, the drugging, the stripping, the screwing, the having of the babies, all of those, all of those hurdles have a tendency to not be there as much if there's a man in her life. But that's why I say what I say, is because a lot of these little girls that don't have men in their lives, they should be putting them into these schools, or better yet, that should be part of their schooling, if you ask me. Especially if it's been established that, number one, oh, mama ain't shit. Number two, she doesn't have no type of male influence in her life, no father, no grandfather, anything like that. Those little girls would be perfect candidates for that kind of stuff, because if you shape and mold them when they're little like that, they may just turn up they may just turn out to be better than their old mammy, because that's probably what their old mammy needed too, right? So when we talking about women being classic women are going to be the ones that find themselves married for the most part. Most of them. Of course, it's not foolproof, but a lot of them are going to find themselves married up. All right. If they're a classic woman, they're going to have dudes beating down the door to try to marry them. Right. For the most part, most of them. Right.
Well, once the dudes see them, I will say prior to this generation, yes. In this generation, there's a lot of talk about wanting them. But like I said, they're not visible, right? The majority of the young population is not, they're dating online. And by dating, I mean that they're using Bumble, they're using Tinder and those types of hookup apps. And then after the hookup, if the hookup's good, well, then maybe they'll call you again and maybe that'll develop into something. Classic women aren't hooking up on Tinder, right? Classic women also aren't club hopping and at the bars getting wasted. So where are you finding the classic women? Well, they're going to a bunch of things that other people are not going to find wives. So this is, I guess, that's the catch 22 of it all. If you found her, if you knew she was there, would you bang down her door? Yes. But can you see her? Can you see her in this day and age? And that is the problem. They're not as visible.
So, well, maybe I have to think about it differently. If they're the ones that are staying home and they're not, they ain't in the club, they ain't on, Snapchat and Twitter, and they're not Skype dating, are those the ones that are more likely to grow old alone? If they're not putting themselves out there, or not necessarily putting themselves out there, but putting themselves in a position to be noticed by men, I should say. If they're not doing that, wouldn't it be harder for them to get married then, because they're, like you said, they're not being seen, they're home, they're whatever, they're knitting sweaters, even though they're only 25. are they the ones that are more likely to, to grow, or are they the old women that I see when I go to the supermarket by themselves? Is that the classic women?
No. It ain't all that bad. It's not that bad. You know why? Because here's the thing. There are certain principles of the traditional or the classic woman, for example, right? Like, I don't pursue men, men pursue me, right? So I'm not going to hit on a guy. I'm not going to ask a guy for his number. I'm not going to blah, 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 blah. And if you started getting to an age where you were getting a little bit older, you might either compromise on that and go make yourself miserable and just say hi and see where it goes, or you might start getting third parties, right? So a third party hookup, for example, like you might start accepting those blind dates that people have been trying to send you on. The thing is, and again, like we know, right, the marriage rate is down, but something key to look at is the fact that millennials and Generation Z, they're waiting until later on in life to get married. Right. And so that kind of matches up with our idea that, well, hey, the classic woman isn't out there and you've not seen her at 20 for you to marry her necessarily. So, they are going to be snapped up once you find her. Right. You guys have, aligning values and beliefs. Boom. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to marry her. You got the ring, whatever. But it's taking a little bit longer. Whereas in a couple generations ago, the classic woman, man, she was married at 16 to 18. Right now, she's married at 20 to 30. So, unfortunately, right? Are they going to be like cat women or whatever at 55? No, it's not. It's not all that serious. It's not all that bad, because ultimately they can maintain a relationship. They can keep a man happy and keep him interested. They can inspire a man to want to get down on one knee. Right. So they aren't really very often at complete risk and peril. Like I said, my girl was 38 years old and she still got chosen at 38 years old. Right. So, might they have to wait a little bit later if they, maybe aren't at the top of the pecking order as far as looks, or maybe if they just really, really aren't out there. Yeah, they may have to wait till a little bit later, but they're the ones who are getting snapped up at later ages because they have all of that and they don't have kids and they don't have, the crazy amount of debt because while they weren't getting snapped up by men in their younger years, they were making intelligent decisions, life choices otherwise. So that way, when the right man fell into their lap, quote unquote, they were ready. They were ready to go.
Mm. So the quote unquote classic women are waiting later to get married. They're getting married older. Is that what it is?
It's not that they're waiting. On one side, they're being kept waiting, right? Because they're not being noticed as quickly and easily because the market is flooded, right? The media is flooded with a bunch of Insta thoughts from 18 to 25, right? They're just everywhere. And that's what is pulling the young man's mind, right? That's what's pulling his eye. That's what he can see. And so he's not going to see that really great, wholesome girl over there in the corner. He's seeing all the flash way before her, right? So it's taking a little bit longer. But remember, by the time we all reach the age of 25, right, our brains fully develop and mature. We're less impulsive. And for men, right, when men hit that like 30 mark, that's when they're more ready in this generation to settle down. And so that's when now they retrospectively start looking back and saying, I'm looking for the wife material women now. Right. And so, whereas in that used to be like 21 to 25, now it's like 30 to 35. Right. And so, the age of the women also goes up in relation to that. Right. That the marriage minded husband, the marriage minded man is a little bit older these days. And so, therefore, the marriage minded woman is waiting a little bit longer to find that husband.
Mm. So if you're a baby mama and you done had 4 kids and you're only 22, you can forget ever being classified as classic, right?
Classic. Yeah, you probably ain't gonna be considered classic. Let's be honest, right? Like, hey, listen, and to be fair, like I would say you might, hey, listen, you could become a great woman, great wife, a great person, great mother, right? But classic, right, involves certain beliefs and ideals.
Mhm,
And having children out of wedlock is definitely not within those ideals. Now, maybe one,
mhm.
maximum two, even into 4 and 5, like, come on. You
Yeah,
know what it is, right? You're not classic. It's all right.
yeah. You can't consider yourself classic if you're on baby number 3 and you're only 19. Yeah, you can't be considered. You'll never reach classic. Uh, you'll never you'll never reach the classic mountain. You'll never get there. I just don't think you're ever gonna get there. Likewise, I don't think that because well, we talked about it earlier. You can be the quote unquote classic woman and not have any kids and all of that and still find yourself outside the goddamn door, even though you're successful and all that kind of stuff. Because what who comes to mind is Condoleezza Rice, right?
Mhm,
Very successful woman. I think she's what in her 50s or something now. And she never had children or anything like that. She never got married, right? Very
mhm,
successful woman, worked in all tiers of government and all that kind of stuff and education. And she probably was the quote unquote classic woman, obviously, because she don't got babies all over the place. But now
mhm.
she's like in her 50s. Let me see. Let me see how old her ass is. I know she's got to be like, she's probably past goddamn 50s. I would imagine.
I don't know. Probably in her 50s, right?
Yeah, she's got to be up there.
I'm gonna
Got to
say,
be.
just because you don't have babies all over the place or any at all doesn't necessarily mean that you are a classic woman. Because to be frank, just because you refuse to have children outside of wedlock does not mean that you have traditional or even classic values. In fact, you might really have wanted to have been married, but you
Mhm,
never wanted children because I've heard women say that. And to me, a woman who does not want children is not a classic woman because that is part of it. it's part of the package, right?
Well,
Wanting a
shit,
husband, wanting children, it's part of the package.
she's a certified senior citizen now. She's 66. So yeah.
Woo, 60s. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, she's older
Yeah.
than I thought, but
She's 66. Goddamn.
66. But here's the thing: if you get to 66 years old, you have no spouse, no family, right? That isn't really a traditional classic mind. If you said like she was a widow, that'd be one thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But to say none, well, then your priorities. Remember, I said, oh, the priority of the classic woman is marriage and family. That's her priority. So she might really very much care about her career or whatever else she's doing in life, right? But her priority, a major one of hers, is that family aspect. And she will feel not anchored, not tied down in a negative way, right? She will feel grounded by having a family, by having that base. So, I'm not, no hate on any woman who doesn't need either of those things, but it's not really a very classically minded or traditionally minded way to think.
Yeah, because she's never had any children. I don't think she's ever been married. All types of education. I think she has a doctorate from a couple of schools. I know she went to Stanford U. I don't know where else she went, but I know she has doctorates from quite a few schools. And she probably was the quote unquote classic woman coming up young, but now she's just a classic, sort of like the 70s Oldsmobile 442 that I
I
want.
knew you were going to say it.
Now she's just a classic. She's not a classic. She probably was a classic woman when she was younger, but now she's just a classic. She's like an old statue, that to put somewhere, at 66.
Well,
She
what? Okay, brother, I gotta give her
one foot in the grave and another foot on an oil slick. But go ahead.
I'll give her this. Listen, the research has been done over and over again. They have proven that women who dress in a more traditional and conservative manner tend to be more successful in business and careers and politics. So, with that being said, obviously she's incredibly successful. And so, I'm sure that as far as how she's held herself and moved through life, she has absolutely had those qualities, right? But that's your outer appearance. That's your demeanor and the way you carry yourself. That doesn't necessarily tie back to your value system, right? And that is the part of the classic woman that I question in a woman who makes it to a certain place in life. Like, we're basically, yeah, you could retire now and you've never had a spouse, you've never had children, you've never been driven to family. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not putting down that woman. I'm just saying that when we're talking about this specific kind of woman, the classic woman, it just wouldn't. I'm telling you, listen, Brother X, I'm married. Hey, I'm 36 years old. And when I say my biological clock started ticking at 17, probably before that, I always wanted a husband and a family. That was my number one priority. I've been dating intentionally since I was like 13 years old. Okay. Every person I dated, I wanted to marry. I was good. And I would have married them too. Because that's what I wanted. Right. That was my priority. I also wanted to be a psychologist. I also wanted to do lots of other things. But I wanted a husband and I wanted children, and I wanted to give my children a traditional two-parent, loving, caring household, which is something I didn't have. Right. And those were things that I had been working at simultaneously with my other goals and dreams my whole life. Now that, I have these health issues and medical issues I need to contend with, I have been going for years. For years, I've been making plans with specialists and doctors and whatever, all with the intentions of being able to have a safe, several, hopefully still, safe, healthy pregnancies, right? Because again, what's my priority? Husband, children. It always has been. It always will be, right? even if I health magically fix itself tomorrow, husband, children, a house, home, right? Making my house a home for my husband, for myself, for our children, right? So there's certain aspects of that that you just can't shake as a classic woman because it's in you. It's in you no matter what.
So is that a thing with you ladies? Like, I mean, you're a married person. So
Mm-hmm.
is that a thing with most women? Do most women start out? Well, what the hell am I saying? Absolutely not. Most women don't start out that way. Do many women start out with the quote unquote classic kind of ideals, maybe as a young girls, all young girls want to be a princess and a queen, and they all want to grow up and marry a prince and shit, and or they kiss the frog and he turns into a prince, the whole fairy tale crap.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
So is that a thing? Is that a thing with women where all of you want to be somebody's wife, but something just kind of gets in the way and kind of makes it crazy, whether it be dope, drugs, the club, 3 baby daddies. Do you think the rank and file woman, as she's growing, has the classic, kind of ideals, but shit kind of gets in the way and kind of throws the car off course?
Oh yeah, I think the large majority, right? I won't say all, but I'll say the large majority, 1,000% want husbands, 1,000% want children. Because I mean, if you, I mean, the children one, right? We don't have as much pushback on, but you know, look at a woman who publicly says she doesn't want to have children, um, and the way that other women look at her. It's almost like ill. There's something must be wrong with you, right? It's like your biological imperative. You want your genes to die with you. What the hell is wrong with you? So from that standpoint, then, right, it's the same thing with a husband, right? Because it's one thing for you to end up being a single mother or a baby mama, right? That wasn't really your intention, but it is what it is. Just you let him hit it raw, and now you're pregnant, and you don't want to have an abortion because you don't really believe in them, or you don't like them, or now you feel attached to it already, and boom, there you go. Now you're single. Now you're baby mama, right? So it happens, right? But most of those women, I would say, by and large, probably from the second of conception, so I've married that man. Yeah, I want to have a husband. And they start dreaming of this beautiful fairy tale princess dream, right? And then when it doesn't pan out because y'all barely know each other, he didn't really like you. No way, you didn't like him either until you found out you're pregnant. And so he's not willing to sacrifice all of that. Like, okay, this will help you with the kid if you have it, but like, I'm not marrying you. And then she's devastated, she's bitter, she's angry, right? You see a bunch of these things play out in such a way that tells you that no matter how tough people are talking, in essence, by and large, women want to be married and women want to have children, right? Again, it's way more than just like 50%. Like the far larger majority of women want that. Um, Most of them that won't admit to wanting one or the other or both are covering something up, right? So, like, I know a woman who lies about the fact she never wanted children, because she went through so many miscarriages, and in essence, she was told she'll never naturally have them. So until she's rich enough to afford in vitro and a surrogate, she just stopped wanting it, right? Because there was a reason. I know women who say that they don't want a man, don't need a man, and blah blah blah. But they started saying that around what, the 10th guy who cheated on them, and the third relationship they were in for 7 years and stole no ring, right? So they're making up excuses and they're saying they don't want things. So that way they don't have to explain why they don't have something that they desperately want, but they don't know how to get. They don't know how to keep. They don't know how to maintain. And so it's easier. It's easier to just say you never wanted it than to say no, you're desperate for it. But no one ever told you what to do. No one ever told you how to get that. No one ever told you how to find someone with a like mind who wants that.
Hmm. Well, I would like to see, and I say this a lot, because we often talk about, like I said earlier, we talk about all these things and we talk about, changing the minds of grown people, which I think is damn near impossible. But I would like to see uh young girls raised up, in a more classic kind of fashion where, not that I'm ever going to live to see, and I don't expect to live to see it now, but it would be nice to see, young women, young girls being groomed up in a more classic fashion so they can kind of grow into the whole classic woman thing. Then you don't have to worry about all of these, all these out of wedlock births, and you wouldn't have to worry about, so much of the ratchetness and the nonsense and the you just you wouldn't see it as much because you'd have a new group of young women coming up in a more classic fashion. So they'll have more classic, ideas, like you said, they won't be up in the club and in the bar and, they won't be out here shaking their ass with the butt cheeks showing and also kind of nonsense. They wouldn't be doing none of that stuff if they're the quote unquote, if they're coming up in a quote unquote classic kind of environment and a classic, grooming and raising and counseling, they'll be less likely to do these crazy things that get these girls wrapped up and jammed up and their lives ruined. Um, yeah, because I don't believe, I just don't believe that it's a productive thing to try to change grown ass people. I believe that the children is where it needs to start. We often talk about the future of black society, man, and if the children aren't it, I don't know what is. You know, I don't know what is. If we're talking about the future of black society, we have to bring the children into the conversation. If we're gonna be standing around talking about people who in their 30s, 40s, and 50s and shit, what about the people who are 3, 4, 5, and 6? Because in 30 years they will inherit this world. Shit, in 30 years, my ass will be dead. So, I mean, we have to start there. And
Brother
and what?
X,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I want to say one thing. I'm going to say a very boring thing that I've said a million times that no one listens to at all. Here's what it comes down to, because environment plays such a massive critical role. What people don't understand is that for all of that modeling and stuff that your parents do, your parents are only influential, or parents are only influential to that extent in their children's lives until late childhood. And at that
Mm-hmm.
point, children turn all of their focus and all of their attention onto what? Their peer group, right? So
Mm-hmm.
here's the thing. You change a child's circumstances and environment before they hit late childhood, and their biology, literally their brain, sets them off on a particular life path because that's when it happens. And so this is why you'll see, for example, a woman who has 3 children in the hood. The first one she had when she was real young, and then the last 2 are babies. And then with the father of the 2 babies, they work really hard. They move those kids the hell out of the hood. The eldest daughter or son, they're 15, 16, or whatever, 14, something like that, maybe even 12, even 12. And then the babies are 4 and 5. And do you know what you see? Even though now they're in a completely upper class neighborhood, beautiful environment, parents on point, the 12-year-old, the 12-year-old keeps going down that same broke down path, even though they don't live around it anymore. They're more likely, they become sexualized earlier. They start, their periods, or, the boys' wet dreams and stuff earlier. Okay. They start having sex earlier. They produce more children earlier. Okay. They have more of them, and they invest very little into them, and they invest very little into who they're having these kids with. Okay, that's actually a life path. And it's something that is very functional inside of nature before we did all of this society, right? This is what we evolved in. Whereas in the little kids, you move them out, guess what? They're gonna follow this nice new safe life path that's, their periods and stuff are gonna start way later. They're gonna become sexualized later. They're gonna start having sex later. They are going to have sex with less people. they're going to have children later, and they're going to wait until they have found the right mate and they've amassed resources to have those children, and they're going to invest more into each individual child, although they will have less children. These are literally life strategies. We can look at the last 10,000 years of humanity and see that this is what happens, right? So as much as we would like to think to an extent that it's just about what we do with our kids in our home that is going to have an impact on them, what we need to recognize is that this environment, this peer group that they're around constantly, because now their peer group is the whole entire world, has a massive impact on them and what they think and what they believe and what they think is right. Their level of safety and security in their houses, inside of their families, has a huge impact on that life strategy cycle that their brain is going to take. And we don't pay enough attention to that because we're so busy arguing about whether the mom should be rewarded, the dad should be rewarded, or who's wrong and who's right, and the pain and blame Olympic Games. And we forget that in the middle of all of that, the people who are being the most impacted are the children. Y'all are already set. Y'all are already adults. I feel less sorry for the two of you grown people making your bad decisions, right? Y'all both made bad decisions to be in this position, but these kids are just helpless and they have to follow you along. So you need to recognize that when you're putting them in bad environments, when you're not giving them safety, when you're not giving them unconditional positive regard, unconditional love, great modeling, when you're not giving them a good environment of people to grow up around, all of these things impact what happens and what life choices our children make 20 years down the road. So when you try to say, I didn't raise him that way, are you sure? Are you 100% sure? Or are you trying to say, well, I changed up when he was 11? Okay, but before he was 11, what were you doing? Because that's the thing that's going to make a lot of choices.
So what you're saying is, if a woman has a kid when she's younger, which is not the quote unquote classic ideal, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not ideal to be considered classic, but the child grows up, in the hood, and some sucker comes along and marries her when the child, when the
How you gotta say sucker?
when the child when the child gets to be like 12, she has a couple babies for him. They get together, they move out the hood. And what you're saying is that those children, those two little babies, the youngest ones,
Mm-hmm.
are in more of a classic environment. Therefore, they'll be less likely to cut up because the other kid that lived in the hood up until the time they were 12, they weren't growing up in the quote unquote classic ideal, environment. So even though they've moved out of the hood, and moved over to like the north side where everything is bright and pretty and the grass is green, that 12-year-old kid will kind of revert back and do the same kind of stuff because they weren't raised within that classic environment. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes, Brother X. We had it here. We called it the Jane and Finch invasion. Okay, Jane and Finch invasion. So what they noticed is Jane and Finch through down to Jane and Wilner. It's about 8 city blocks or so. It was the worst in downtown Toronto. It was terrible. It's a lot of guns and drugs and fighting and shooting and deaths, and it was terrible. And there also was a lot of government housing. So the province decided to take it upon themselves to try to fix the problem. They thought, well, just separating, these kids, right, and putting them in a bunch of different cities would fix the problem. But that's not what happened. See what happened? So they shifted government housing around all across southern Ontario. And what they found was all of these people who were already in middle school and high school, they just brought their badness with them and then recruited a bunch of idiots to follow them, right? The kids, the young ones, the little ones that were already still in primary school, they're the ones who got a new chance. They're the ones who changed. They're the ones who didn't grow up and become in gangs or on drugs or hypersexualized or already on welfare by the time they were 14 to 17 themselves, right? So we've already seen it happen just in my lifetime alone. And this was without the parents didn't even have to work hard or nothing for it to happen. Right. So these single mothers who had the young babies who moved from one place to another in government housing, the father didn't arrive. Right. There's nothing else changed, just where they were. And already you saw a significant difference because now they're in a different environment. They're in a safer, cleaner environment. Guns, drugs, danger, all that stuff is way down. Your mama still ain't shit, but you know what? You've got great role models at the school. You've got great peers to support you. You have all those other influences. And that in and of itself made a huge impact too. Right. So, we can't ignore this. We can't ignore it because you see it again and again and again. And, we got to clean up the environments, or, you got to get the hell out of that environment for your kids' sake when they're still young enough to change that trajectory easily.
Well, y'all, we are here with Lady Ruby, and Lady Ruby is willing to entertain the brother's questions. If you want to ask Lady Ruby a question, go ahead, put it in the chat. I will read it. I think. Go ahead and ask us some questions, man, while I got her here, cause often, we have these conversations, man, and like I said, I put myself in that bag too. We always talk about the ratchetness and the BS and the hoeing and the thotting and of course these old mamas. But if you got some questions, you want to ask, Lady Ruby something, she know that we was going to take questions tonight because I told her that. So, if y'all brothers got any questions y'all want to hit her with, maybe something you never asked, you never asked any other women before up here, go ahead, don't be shy. Don't be shy, my brothers. Don't be shy. So while we waiting for brothers to well, matter of fact, maybe they want to think about it. So I'll do this. I
Okay.
like to do this. I like to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Because they might be thinking about it. Yeah, give the brothers a moment to think it over. So let me ask about you, Lady Ruby. Like, are you doing are you active on YouTube at all? And I listen to I'll listen to some of you ladies old shows too. You and Charles old shows. I actually listened to a few of them down
Thank you.
there.
What do you think? What do you think?
They're cool, but see, I'm biased. I know y'all, so I'm biased. I'm biased. So I think it was I think they were very interesting. So are y'all still doing it? I know the ones I listened to y'all had done at a earlier date, because I think I tried to go down there last week or the week before, because 1 week, yeah, I did shows last week. So the week before I went down there because I didn't do any shows to try to catch y'all, but y'all wasn't live. Maybe I went in there too early, or I don't know.
Maybe, I don't know. Wednesdays, we're still every week Wednesdays. Actually, we're syndicated, so we're about to start. I think we're starting on another radio station as well.
Oh
With
shit!
our shows. Yeah, man, we got countries all around the world listening to us, so it's pretty cool.
Get out
So
of here! Get
I
out of
know,
here!
right? So yeah, we are still on Zeno FM on CRBJ. We do that. That's on Wednesday nights at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Not trying to take no one away from Brother X. Y'all can always listen to our replays too on Mixler, on Shar's Mixler. And then on Fridays at 10:30 p.m. and Saturdays at 7:30 p.m. I'm over on Just Ask Shar. And Fridays we do an advice panel, so people either write in, and they ask questions and we answer. You could always write in and ask a question yourself. Complete anonymity. The only person who ever sees the email address even is Shar. And then on Saturdays we kind of do our news show. So try to cover, not just the same old boring news. Try to do that, and we do that every Saturday. So yeah, I'm still around. Maybe not as often, all over the place every day, but I am still around.
Yeah, and I just put the info up there. Lady Ruby and Charles Radio Show, Wednesday nights, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Okay. Get on up there to mixcloud.com. Check it out, y'all. Matter of fact, I'll do this. I will do this. I'll go ahead and check the ladies out. The show's actually pretty interesting. I think my ass was just down there at the wrong time. But yeah, go ahead. There's Lady Ruby and Lady Charles. There's the link to get to their show.
Thank you.
Go ahead and throw that in there. Okay, so y'all still doing the radio show.
Yeah.
And you say you're saying that it's syndicated now, right?
Yeah, we're gonna be on another radio station. I don't remember which radio station, to be fair, but we'll be another one.
So how did that come about, and how long you ladies been doing that? How long have y'all been doing that?
Well, Shar Willie was invited to co-host on that radio station with the station's owner, DJ Music. And so she kind of invited us over there to, listen to her, which we were. And then I don't know, I guess at some point, Shar wanted to have her own show as well. She kind of had an idea of what she wanted to do. And, she invited me to co-host. And I was like, seriously? I can't be nobody's co-host. I don't know nothing about nothing. But I said yes, and that was that. We just started doing it.
Okay. Let me see. My question: why aren't Black content creators more informed about intellectual property rights? And 11.4 billion advertisers have committed to Black content creators that would help us out. That's a good question. If we were talking about that tonight, brother RBR, which we are not, we're asking Lady Ruby about classic women. That's kind of the show topic tonight, brother RBR. Brother L. Nixon says, Ruby, I'm finding it so hard to find people around me who even touch on this. I get so much pushback, and this will not fix our cycles of dysfunction if people don't do the work. You are correct.
Yes.
Brother L. Nixon. You are correct, brother.
Yes, brother. And we have spoken about this in the chat room, me and L. Nixon, because it's this thing where everyone is willing to talk about and point out the dysfunction, slap at people and put people down and, do all the stuff in the muck because it's fun, because it's entertaining, because it's validating to confirm one's bibiases. But no one really wants to speak on the other side. No one really wants to cover it. So that's why I was like, when you said, Brother X, you want to do classic women, I'm like, really? You do? Like, I don't think I've done this topic since the last time I did it on your show or something different.
Right? Like 2 years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago. No one does this anymore, right? And so, I was so relieved to do it because, and that's why I said we have maybe some classic women who are out and about on panels and whatnot. But what are they speaking about? They're not talking about what is a classic woman. What do these women think? What do they feel? What do they experience? How do you do this? What makes you different versus, we don't talk about this kind of stuff. And how do you break? Like okay, listen, gentlemen, I'm not trying to be critical. I'm not, but I'm going to say something here. You can take it as criticism. Here's the thing. Men think that women know a lot more than they do. like we just were born with an encyclopedia in our head. So when we turned 18, boom, we have all the knowledge of every type of woman. And, we just choose to shun being a classic woman so we can be the Instagram thought, right? Like that isn't really the case. The far larger majority don't do that. Just like how men, like you don't know what manhood is. You don't know what being a man is. It's never been modeled for you. You don't have a father. You don't have male role models. You don't really know what it is. So you get older, you might not like what some types of men are doing, but the ones that you like, that you wish you could model yourself after, you're not sure how exactly they're being like that, right? Like they'll just say, yeah, you have it in you. But like, how do you have that in you? How do you have that composure? How do you have that confidence? How do you have that, right? Women go through that exact same struggle, right? Just because they have mothers in the home. Well, if they don't have a classic mother in the home, they don't have a traditional mother, grandmother, auntie, female role model in the home, what are they modeling themselves after, right? Like the women who are in their lives can only teach them to be what they are, right? So we got to recognize that we need more. If we want to see more classic women, then we do need more content out here that demonstrates classic women and classic womanhood. I know some women are now speaking about femininity and about submission, and I think that's a great start. But I do definitely think we need more of it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not one to think that, it's all bad. Because all birds don't fly. So, it's not all bad, it's not all doom and gloom. You know, you see so much of it that you can believe that it's doom and gloom. And I would even go as far as saying the rank and file, the majority of it is somewhat doomy and gloomy. But, there's that 20%, 30%, 40%, whatever you want to call it, whatever percentage that isn't doomy and gloomy. And I think that goes for everything. I think it goes for jobs, money, life, men, women. I mean, there's always going to be some diamonds in the rough. And I think that the quote unquote classic women are those diamonds in the rough that a lot of brothers probably are not finding them because, like we've been saying all night, they're not necessarily out there like that to be found. But I would be the last one to tell you that, they're not there, that they don't exist, like Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny. I think that I think that people, when they think about classic women, they put them in the same category as, the Easter Bunny, Santa Claus, they're just a myth, something inside of children's stories. But I don't believe that to be true. But Brother L. Nixon says, question, can we clone you and put classic Ruby like women in certain places? Joking, but I'm not. Ah!
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you. uh, you know, I mean, technically, we clone humans every day, right? It's called reproduction. So it comes down
Yeah,
to,
that is cloning.
uh, right? That is cloning, right? We clone humans every day. So a lot of people who, for example, are opting out, right? They know that they'd be great husbands. They refuse to believe that there are good women out there who will be great wives, and therefore they would be great parents who will make great children, right? So in essence, they're opting out of the cloning process. They're opting out of making more good women, more classic women, more traditional women. They're opting out, right? And this is a major issue we have. Whereas you have to think about it, and this population has always been like this. It's across the board, anywhere you go, right? That the poor population, the uneducated population, the ignorant population, the criminal population, that population is going to keep doubling, tripling, quadrupling itself, right? The higher class population, the richer population, the higher intellect population, that population actually grows at a much slower rate, doesn't even double, doesn't even get close. Right. So you might get a 5-to-1 growth rate. So it comes down to, right, if you don't like the way that the population is trending, you opting out of trying to fortify the side that you want to grow bigger and stronger is not going to help, because that means in 20, 30 years from now, when we're having this discussion, right, the little us's have now grown up and are having this discussion. There's only 1/3 of them, 1/3 of the power to try to have this discussion and try to push this side of things, trying to push this mindset of things, right? So like opting out is 1,000% for sure. It's ridiculous, because in essence, not only do your genes die with you, but more importantly, the problem is that then we're not cloning the good ones.
But we're losing, though. I can see that just from, my vantage point, that, we're losing. I mean, you don't see, I say this a lot. I would hate to be a 25, 30-year-old guy now, trying to find a wife and shit like that. Because just by what I see, just by what I see when I'm in my travels, just by what I see on media and the internet, shit like that. I mean, a 25, 30-year-old guy who's actually trying. I mean, if you just a dude out here, knocking boots and handling your business, that's one thing. But if you're a dude actually seeking a wife nowadays, man, I got 2 words for you. Good luck. Because from what I see, man, it ain't much out there for these brothers, man. It's not a lot out there for them, and I feel for them. I feel somewhat sorry for them, because they stuck with a lot of women who are not classic or traditional, or it's what they stuck with. And these women are jammed up like this young. It's not like these women are 30. These women are, they 22 and got 4 baby type shit. There's a lot of that out there. There's a lot of women out there who they freaking their whole thing is this whole Instagram, internet crap. You got women out there who, they treat the kids like crap, and they in the bar Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So it's just the whole gambit. It's a whole gambit of bad, bad, bad examples of females out there. So I understand the frustration of some of these young brothers, because I talk to young brothers a lot who, these brothers do want a wife. They 30 years old and they do want a wife and they do want children, and they don't have 4 and 5 baby mamas, but they can't seem to find a decent woman who don't already got 3 kids, or she own drugs, or she just ain't shit, or she twice his size, or all of those combined. So I feel kind of sorry for the young brothers, because I think that we're losing. I think we're having a deduction of the quote unquote classic women. I don't think we're having an increase. I mean, I think the numbers are dwindling somewhat, but I could be wrong. I mean, am I wrong here?
No, of course not. You're not. But and again, I know I'm never popular when I speak on both sides, but it's got to be said, right? I agree with you, brother X. Man, I'm telling you, I don't know. I don't know how I would survive being single right now, because I look at what's out there. I look at the current mindsets for the way that men and women think about relationships, and I'm like, oh hell no. I could not do it. I could not be what people are out here in order for them to be quote unquote competing and whatnot. And likewise with some of the mindsets I hear from the men, the way that they think and feel about women, and they don't care that they're overgeneralizing. It's just going to apply to all because it's safer that way. And I get it on one side. On the other side, I'm thinking like, thank God I'm not single, right? So, there's so much bitterness. There's so much anger. There's so much hurt. There's so much brokenness. There's so much unfixed problems out there. And it's creating so much damage. And unfortunately, the reason why everyone's so damn damaged is not because we start off at the 14-year-old mark and so many of them just ain't shit on both sides. No, it's because unfortunately, the good women and the good men, right? The good young women and the good young men coming up, they don't choose the good women and the good men to date. That's not who their first or maybe second or even third boyfriend or girlfriend is. They're always picking the ain't shit ones first, right? And getting damaged by them, getting trampled by them. And so by the time they get to full adulthood, now they're jaded. Now they're angry. Now they're hurt. Now they're like, no, they have now these rough edges they didn't used to have. And it makes sense because the world trampled on them, and I get it. I was trampled on as well. I just have a different mentality about things, and I'm a rare breed in the fact I can't find a lot of people who see the world the way I do. But that's part of the issue. This is why we need to inform our brothers, especially the young ones and our young sisters, not about all the ain't shitness that's out there. Because yeah, listen, that's like a dime a dozen. There's so much of it out there now, right? I understand. I agree. At one point there wasn't, but there is now, right? So what we need to start telling these young sisters and young brothers, what does that look like? What does a good woman look like? What does a good young man look like, right? When y'all are 14, 15, you're trying to make choices, right? It's very hard for you to think with anything outside your hormones, right? So tell me what I'm looking for. Tell me what I'm not looking for, because, they don't know, right? And they can't just rely on like what would be 14, 15-year-old common sense, right? There's no way you can use that type of strategy anymore. There's too much out there. Kids are growing up too fast. There's too much internet out there. So, we need more information. We definitely do. And we need to be training these kids in every way we can. Like I do women's retreats, right? And so this is, if you're a woman, doesn't matter how young you are, you can come to these retreats. There's a bunch of different classes over, sometimes only a few days, sometimes a week or two, depending on where we're holding it around the world. And when I tell you the amount of pain you see cried out of these people, the amount of devastation, the horrible stories you hear, and they're just there, in essence, they need to get rid of that pain before they can grow, before they can change, before they can accept accountability and responsibility for their role in where things went wrong and so on. The things that you hear coming out of the kids, especially, is just devastating, So when I say we need to be doing this more, I know we need to be doing this more for both the young men and the young women, very young. We need to start training them. If their parents won't do it, I don't care if their parents won't do it, because I'm here and I can. And I'm taking that collective conscious and that collective responsibility and deciding that I want a better world for my kids. So I'm going to do what I can. And I think that, that doesn't involve, oh, you got to marry someone with 3 kids that ain't got a mama, ain't got a daddy. I'm saying, can you volunteer some time? Can you be a big brother or a big sister through one of the foundations? Can you do something to help give even one kid, even one little group of kids, a better shot than they have? Or is it just like, well, if their mom ain't shit, then that's not my fault?
Do you mean actually get out there and do groundwork?
But shocking, right? I know, it's like almost offensive when you say that. It's like, yes, I do, right? Yes, I do.
Well, brother L. Nixon, again, question. He says, do you think that once you unlearn unhealthy behavior and change your energy, your mind, body, and soul will attract the same energy? Still can attract bad energy, but won't move you anymore.
1000% for sure. Yes. In fact, I've done videos on it, in a variety of ways. The last one, I can't remember exactly what I originally named it. I think it was something along the lines of "Who the fuck are you?" That's what I named it. Now it's like not the very last one I made, but maybe one of the top 3. And I talked about that. I talked about confirmation bias. First of all, I talked about the fact that whatever energy you're putting out there, that's what you're bringing in. If every person you bring into you is a liar and a cheater and a scammer and a user, I'm not blaming you. I'm not saying you deserve to be scammed. I'm saying that that's the energy you're putting out. Okay. Which means you got to stop putting any energy out at all and go work on you. because there's some stuff in you that is not at peace, not in harmony, not resolved. And until you resolve all of that, you can't bring in the energy you seek and that you're hoping for. So you can't bring in that wife energy. You can't bring in that husband energy. You will never attract that kind of person. Why? Because they are looking for a similar energy. And right now, that's not what you're putting out. That's your desire. That's your hope. That's your dream. That's what you want. That's cool, right? You should want that. But in order for you to get that, you have to fix what you're putting out there. And you can't do it by just, well, if you just want it really bad, if you just think about it enough. No, it involves you doing the hard work and facing yourself first, not facing everyone else, not blaming everyone else, not figuring out how it's everyone else's fault and problem. No, no, no. You have to face yourself and fix yourself. I went through that process. It's not easy. It's not easy because, again, we're all like little addicts running around in the world. Okay, we are. And so admitting that there is a problem, no, we can normally do that. Admitting that we are our biggest problem, no, we're not great at doing that.
Well, Lady Topaz is in the house. What's good with it, Lady Topaz?
Hey, Topaz.
With the $2 super chat. She says Ruby has spoken about this previously. Are you a classic woman, Lady Topaz? Are you a classic woman, or are you just a classic?
See, I think Topaz is going to say something like, I think Topaz is like me. We're very similar in a lot of ways. So I'm going to say she's about an 85%er too, right? Like we're mostly, we're classically minded and traditional.
She's mostly classic.
She's mostly classic. She probably has like 1-2 traits, like me and my clothing, right? Like I can't say that's a classic thing, but
I'm 85%. I'm 85% classic. Shout out to Dallas Cowboys with the $3 super chat. I appreciate that, brother.
Long time no see. How you doing, Dallas Cowboys? Huh.
So if you want to come up here and expound on your classicness, Lady Topaz, you can if you feel the need to. You can.
Now I want to say one thing, because it wasn't really, well, it was a question, but it was like before the question period, but whatever. And Super Mike was like 12? Like, you can say 12. Yeah, 12. Think about it this way, okay? Before you start puberty, your life path is set in your brain. Okay. I'm not talking about socialization. I'm literally talking about biology, something that we evolved to do. Why did we evolve to do this? Because 10,000 years ago, if you were born and raised and you had very little love, very little help, because it's all survival of the fittest, and ain't no one got time for investing in you right now. There's a lot of danger, very little food, very little safety and security. If you wanted your genes to survive, you better be able to reproduce very quickly. And it's a waste of time for you to invest in all these kids you need to produce really quickly, because, again, because of the conditions, the environment, you're going to lose about 60% of them anyway. So you might as well allow the ones that can thrive to thrive in this harsh condition, because those are the genes you need to be passing down to make the next generation full of harder stuff, tougher stuff, right? So we evolved to be like that 10,000 years ago. We stopped physiologically evolving, okay? So we are still like that. So you need to be making those brain life choices before puberty. Like, you being born and raised into hard times with a lack of safety and security, your period can start as like 4 years earlier than average. Okay, this is for real. You actually see that happen when children who are like very attached to their fathers and whatever lose them very early. Their periods start very early. There's a bunch of research on this, right? So yeah, 12 years old. You think that 12 years old is really young, but by then your life path is well set. So, that's why I said late childhood. You're looking at late childhood. You got like 8 years.
So if you're being raised in a quote unquote classic environment, it doesn't matter, right? So, you're being raised pretty traditional. Your mom is there, your dad is there, neither one of them are on crack. So, they're kind of raising you in a traditional way. So becoming a classic girl and eventually a classic woman is just, it's going to come natural to you, right? It's going to come natural because of how you're being raised.
Right, right. Because being raised within a two-parent household full of love and respect and dignity, where you never have to worry if your belly's full, where you never have to worry if you're safe at night because daddy's around the corner, mommy's gonna kiss your boo-boos, right? You don't process that you're actually poor, unless it shows. Like I was poor growing up. I didn't know. Go figure, right? Because my parents did a very good job of making sure I ate while they starved. And I didn't realize they starved because they lied to me. My mom would tell me she had a big lunch or something, right? So, when you get stuff like that from your parents, right, it's all about your perception as well. And so once you get that, well, your body tells you, yeah, we can chill. We're taken care of. There's lots of time. There's all the time in the world for me to start puberty later. I don't have to waste resources very early on in life. I'm trying to get that puberty going so I can pop out a bunch of babies before I die too quick. No, I'm good. I can chill. I'll use resources on acquiring knowledge, on acquiring other types of skills, whatever. I got time. Right? And that's what your body tells you. It tells you to shift focus from reproduction to something else. You don't need to reproduce right now. You got time to wait and accrue resources first and find a suitable partner first, and then have a bunch of children, as many as you want, that you're going to invest all of your resources into to make better quality offspring with better choices for the next generation, right? Which is why, in general, if you look at richer society, higher class society, two-parent homes and stuff, those people tend to have children later in life, right? With less people. Normally, they're not having children with 3 or 4 or 5 different people. Maybe one husband, maybe two if the first marriage didn't go well, right? And they have less children. They invest a lot into those kids, though, right? It's these. When you go into the inner city, when you go into poverty-stricken neighborhoods, people are having 6 to 10 kids. They can't afford to feed one, but they have 6. Those people over there can afford to feed a whole village, and they have 2 kids. You see it work out every day.
Yeah. Well, we've been joined by Lady Topaz. What's good with it, Lady Topaz?
Hey, X. Hey, Ruby. I love panels.
Hey!
And it's interesting because me and Ruby actually did a panel, I think, about this, like a year ago?
Yeah, about. Mm-hmm.
And then she did other stuff on her channel as well. So Ruby has been very vocal. I'm glad that you had this showcase for her, because I feel like she's not getting the recognition she needed for her channel. And now she's doing a lot of other stuff. But are you going to do more stuff on your own channel, Ruby, coming up?
Well, why you gotta keep calling me out every time Topaz sees me? She's like, so you gonna be doing stuff on your channel?
Yes, I am trying to keep asking you, Ruby, because I found you through your own channel, and then now you're doing stuff everywhere else. But I liked, she was very energetic and funny and cute on her channel, So, and then also, the stuff that she's talking about, this is developmental psychology, in case y'all didn't know that she was in my field too. So she deals with the development, and I deal with, clinical, after you're either, wherever you are right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. Lady Ruby has been around the T.P.O.T YouTube page for quite some time. Yeah, quite some time. Ever since I started out doing this. I mean, Lady Ruby was one of the first females that I kind of reached out to, and we kind of did a little collaboration. So
she's amazing. She's
been around this page a long time, quite some time. But what you got for us?
Well, you told me to come up here and expound on my classicness, right? So
yes. I want to hear it. I want to hear it.
Okay, so you asked me, was I classic? I like to think so. I mean, I believe so, but that's in the eye of the beholder. So in terms of my reason why I say that is because the definition of classic is in layman's terms, or in my terms, transcending time. Whatever it is that you're doing that's positive is going to be applicable throughout different times. It doesn't stop. It's not only relevant for one specific period of time. It's relevant throughout. It's hard to achieve that. So I like to think that I did, you know. So I mean, I don't know. Depends on how people experience me. But my opinion is yes.
So do you share Ladies Ruby's view
We
of
have we have a
today's
lot in
classic
common.
woman?
Right. Now, so I believe that now I wasn't here because I was doing my live stream today on Black parenting, but I just came in and I can say that I believe that whatever it is that Classic Ruby said about being a classic woman, I can assure you that I probably like 90% agree with it. You know, we have a few things that we give each other pushback on, but I like the fact that she can handle pushback and she can give pushback respectfully. So if there is anything that she said, I'm going to watch the replay. If there's anything that she said that I do disagree with, I imagine that we could have a panel on it if we needed to, and we would be able to talk it out, and people will leave with either they agree with me or her, and nobody will feel like they have to choose anything. So I think that that's maturity. So I'm going to say yes.
Okay.
In case you didn't know, I am long-winded, so I'm going to go on mute.
It's all right. I don't mind. That's why I want you to let you come up here because
Okay.
I want you to talk. But
Yeah, just tell me to stop when you need to interject or something. You know, Ruby knows the drill.
no, I don't do that. I just pick my moments and kind of slide in there. That's kind of how I do it. I pick my moments and I step in when there's a break.
Okay.
If the quote unquote classic women, whatever you want to call, however you categorize, because I'm pretty sure because Lady Ruby said there's levels to it, and she 85% classic and all this kind of stuff. So those so-called classic women, no matter what type of classic women they are, what happens? What happens when those women don't end up getting married? What happens when those women don't end up having children or whatever? Do they become the old, bitter, resentful,
No.
cat ladies?
No, because see, this is the thing about being classic is that there is a place for you and you understand and can accept that. So you don't have a need to be bitter. So these will be the women that you see that even if they are older and they don't have a marriage or kids, that they're still graceful. They're still the epitome of, what it means to be a woman. They don't change who they are. That's the point of being classic. You don't have to change who you are based on not getting something right now. So that's my opinion, is if they're classic, they're going to stay classic because that's a part of them. And so in terms of percentages, I would say I'm 90% classic because there's always leeway for times where I don't where I miss the mark. No one's perfect. So I would say 90.
Now, if I could add something, I want to add something because here's the thing. So I've lived a whole life of people, in essence, like I have a public face. There's a public persona. So part of that is I'm friendly, I'm upbeat, I'm bubbly, don't spend a lot of time complaining. Even if I mention something that other people would feel is like huge complaint, whining, woe is me worthy, I don't. I just mention it like offhand, like it's nothing. And so as a result, I've gotten a lot of flack, especially within our community. And I don't mean just online, but I mean in general, right? People don't believe there's anything wrong with me, right? Because they think, well, if there's something wrong with you, you'd be sitting there and bitching and moaning and complaining. And well, if you had that many health, you'd be bitter and whiny and needing everyone's help all the time and making excuses. And right. But see, the thing is that to me, that's not reflecting well on myself to behave that way just because I have a reason to. Right. So I don't. There's a way that you carry yourself. There's a way that you present yourself to the world. If I can't present myself to the world that way that day, I'm not going to present myself to the world that day. If I have to present myself to the world that way, I'm going to find a way to suck it up. DJ Music says he finds it amazing. I will show up for the radio show and I will sound like death warmed over behind the scenes. And as soon as that mic is on, hey y'all, what's up? I'm Classic Ruby. And you would swear there's nothing wrong with me. Right. But meanwhile, they know there's a whole lot wrong with me. I mean, I had a death in the family, a really meaningful one that really rocked me to the core. I had COVID literally a month ago. You would have no idea that there's something wrong. Why? Because to me, that's just who you're supposed to be in public. You don't go sit there and make yourself a mess in public, right? And so that's part of this. When I said that there's a belief system, there's a mindset, right? There's a way that you carry yourself, and that's not really negotiable, right? You can have all kinds of feelings. You're still a woman. Of course you have feelings, but
Right.
those feelings don't bring you out of yourself, right? Because there's a self that you are. You know what I mean? So you'll be honest about your feelings, but those feelings don't change who you are. That's why you're not disrespectful no matter what, right? Or you're not this no matter what, because it's a mindset that you're reared in, that this is how you behave in public, this is how you don't behave in public, and there's no negotiating.
Right. And I think the biggest point that Ruby is making is the fact that, see, she's able to adapt. Here's the thing. If you are having a lot of problems, if you sit around whiny, you are wallowing in it. So you now are preventing any possibility of any positivity getting through. You're keeping yourself trapped in that. So if you are able to just, get through it, and when the mic turns on and she's able to be bubbly, she's gonna get the support and compliments that can help her out of that state, at least to forget about it for a little bit. And your body does need breaks. If when you're going through something stressful, you do need a break from the stressfulness, from time to time. Even if it's not completely resolved right then, at least you get a break, and then you get re-energized and you can go back and fight it later. So what Ruby is describing right now is essentially what makes a classic woman, because you can adapt to things. You are able to, if something is bad going on in your life right now, you're still able to interact and participate in the world. You're still an active participant. You're not just sitting on the sidelines giving up, because then you kind of like concrete yourself into misery.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I had asked Lady Ruby earlier, and I'll ask you too, Lady Topaz, because there's a few women who are welcomed, where the brothers gather, and I know you're part of a team where you're the only girl on the team. All right. And shout out to brother
TV.
Yeah, shout out to brother Kenny, brother Bitcoin L, and Third Ward,
Colombian.
And are y'all still fourth quarter talk, or y'all something else now?
We had a split from fourth quarter talk.
Yeah. I know the Jacksons broke up. I did hear that the Jacksons broke up. So, but just
Jacksons broke up.
Yeah, I did hear the Jacksons broke up.
Separate ways, and so is Third World Colombian, Bitcoin L, me, Kenny Conjo, and fourth quarter talk TV. I mean, not, I'm sorry. Listen, fourth quarter talk is Big Duke, and we do wish him the best. We still feel like he's a good man and everything. But for the record, TV, I think it allows us to be a little bit more blunt than we could have been in the first channel. So I think that the split kind of lets everybody be themselves.
Okay, so why y'all ain't came down here and hollered at me?
We didn't get an invite, and we don't just show up places and just bogart our way through. X, that's respect. We respect you. So if you want us to come through, we can definitely make that happen.
All right, because brother Kenny, brother Brandon, and Third Ward, they're my folks, man. They've been supporting me a long time.
Yes, they have.
Me and Third Ward
y'all need to get on. Y'all need to get on down here, man, so we can chop it up. One night.
We definitely can. And you know what, brother X, if you could, when you just look at my channel, I do Black mental health. So I had a stream earlier today with another professional, D. Darrell. We're talking about Black parenting. So if that's something, we'll talk. You got my email now.
You're in mental health though, right?
Yes. Yes, that's what me and Ruby do. We had a whole series about Black community.
Wait a damn minute.
It's stuff going on. You gotta come out here. You gotta come out of your channel and come, mingle with the common folk. You can't just be up here on a pedestal by yourself. Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of stuff going on.
Wait a minute. I do something called Ask the Doc. I do something called Ask the Doc
with
series.
Nicole Ali and another lady. I can't remember her name.
Yeah,
but
I do that.
I know.
Dr. Yaya. Dr.
Yeah, that
Dr.
her.
Tia Johnson has been on here. Dr. Anwar has been on here. So
Yes.
I got Dr. Neil coming on next week. So, I like having these, these doxy kind of folks,
And I will say that I watch the replays and I go ahead and give you a like. I am never available when you do these live streams because I have to. I have a business I have to run, so I do catch the replays and give a like because I think that that's needed information.
Oh yeah, I try. I try down here on the.
And
on
Nicole
the
Ali is amazing.
She's amazing. Oh yes, she is. Absolutely.
Man, so, let's go back into Brother X's stories. Brother X's interview people from decades ago, like
yes,
not decades, but
interesting.
Like more than once. Like Brother X gets people over here. Like woo, Brother X
well, that's not a secret. I mean, there's not too many people you can name who's a known name on YouTube that hasn't been on this channel. That's just a fact, not a known name. But I also have a lot of people from outside of the space as well.
Right.
I have the Dr. Umars, because I know him. Sister Shahrazad Ali, who I also know personally. I've had the doctors, I've had the lawyers, I've had mothers of children who've been killed by the police, fathers of children who've been killed by the police. I mean, it goes on and on and on and on and on. I mean,
right. I see that.
Not to brag or nothing like that, but
got a nice little library over here. Like
I
just need to go through the live stream.
Oh yeah, I've had quite a few people. Like I said, there's not too many people you can name that haven't been on this channel. I even had Jane Elliott on here, the old white woman who does her little her little racial experiment. She was on my channel. Yeah,
I love her. I do. I think that brown-eyed, blue-eyed experiment was the greatest thing white people did to white people to show white people something. I'm just saying.
I had her on, I think in 2016 or 2017. I don't even remember. Might have been
right.
But she's been on here. She's been on here too. So what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be giving folks a few new looks. Some of the people that you'll see up here in 2021, some you'll be familiar with, some you will not.
Right.
Yeah, we doing a few new things. We're bringing some old people from the past who haven't been on here in a while. Ergo, well, I can't really say that about Lady Ruby because she was just on here a few weeks ago. But technically, she hasn't been on in a while. Yeah, technically. So we're gonna be doing a lot of that, and just mixing it up. We're gonna be mixing it up a little bit down here, doing a few new things. We're gonna get rid of some old furniture and then replace it with some, Corinthian leather couches. We're gonna be doing some of that down here. So, everybody just stay tuned. Stay tuned.
Of course. I'm subbed. I've been subbed. So, I've been just catching replays. I've been watching it, giving a like as much as I could. So, I kind of like the setup you do here because this is the thing. When I first came onto YouTube, I felt like it was a lot of stuff that wasn't being said. So I like your debate series because it's requiring Black people to be able to put together an argument, not just feel something, but to be able to effectively express it in a way to either convince or educate or discuss something. Like those are the reasons for debates. There's different types. So I like that series. I think that's something.
So when are you coming? So when are you coming to debate? What are you coming up?
You know what? I wouldn't mind debating, but I don't know. Like I don't know anybody that I could debate. Like there's not a lot of women over here that have different opinions. Now me and Ruby could think of something that we disagree on in debate. I feel like we've done that in our panels, but
we do that anyway.
Yeah,
we do that anyway.
So it'll be so like just natural.
Okay. Yep. Well, if you ladies come up with something, hit me up. You got my info, and I want to link up with you and the brothers too, Lady
Topaz. I'll text them as soon as I get off here. I'll text them, and then that way, and I have your email now, so I'll email you. I'll make the responsibility of emailing you on a day where we can do it.
Yeah, let's try to do something soon. I don't want to do
Okay.
it like 5 months from now.
No,
Let's try to.
like in the next couple of weeks. And so I'm gonna
Yes,
just tell you, like
yes.
on my personal channel, I've been doing back and forth. Like there's 1 week, alternating weeks. One is the spa where we just have a girly conversation so y'all can see positive Black women and what we do when y'all ain't around, like the beauty shop for normal Black women, not the toxic ones. And then the other alternating week is gonna be like the state of Black YouTube. Me and Rob B. Privilege and some other ladies that I respect, talking about like what we see on here.
Yeah.
What do we think? What do we think is a good idea? What should we be seeing more of on here? Plus, I got some other stuff lined up. I got a bunch of stuff for y'all in 2021. It's been flowing through my mind, so I got to get it out.
It's some classic women down there, right? That's what you're
saying. Yeah, it is. To be honest, yes, it is. Because I only deal with
breaking news, brothers.
Women.
Breaking news, brothers. Breaking news. Get on down there to Lady Topaz's channel.
Yeah, come down there and be respectful because I only deal with a certain type of women. I don't have toxic Black women on my channel because I can't tolerate that. I only deal with a certain type of women, so it's not gonna be craziness. Now it's gonna be funny because I believe in having fun, but it's not gonna be crazy toxic Black women. It's not. Sorry.
There it is, brothers.
To be fair, here's the problem. They do exist, like I said, there's not that many, but there are a few Black female channels that are not about the bullshit, right? They're not about rolling in the muck. They're not about the drama and the doxing and the whatever. They're about real content, talking, just on some real stuff, not on pushing some rhetoric, no, just talking about real life balance, fairness, Black love, Black community, Black collective conscience. Like, Topaz has been over on Char Willie's channel, just as Char, right?
I know, and she's banned me because she said it turned everything into therapy, but I still love Char Willie. I still love her. She's gonna forgive me soon.
No, what had happened was, right, because like I said, me and Topaz, right, we come from two different perspectives of psychology, right? More developmental, evolutionary psychology, whereas Topaz is talking more about the here and now, the clinical, right? So as a result, we could agree and get debate for an hour. So that's what happened. Char's not really about the debate. So
right. Yeah, she was like, okay, so listen, I'm tired of both of y'all.
Pretty much, but I'm her co-host. She can't get rid of me. So
and Ruby was acting right before I got there, so she was like, no, it's you. And it was technically because, to be honest with you, if I showed up and that's what happened, then yeah, it was my fault. So,
but even
I'm just waiting on Shaw to forgive me. She gonna forgive me soon. It's all right.
Right. But see, it's all love. Even when we're saying that, it's all love, it's all respect. But see, people don't want to support that. And the sad thing is to say is that if a woman comes on some BS, right, making all kinds of noise, talking about Dusty and how Black men ain't ish, guess what? She's gonna have 1,000 people watching her to do that. Right. You have some Black women who want to get together and, speak rationally, talk about, just call out bullshit for what it is, but also, big up positive qualities, be balanced and whatever. Guess what? That's going to get 20 views. Why? Because we as a community, we like the bullshit. Let's be real. We like the drama. We like the mess.
Do. That's the nature of the internet beast, unfortunately. And shout out to my brother AJ with the $5 super chat. He said, love brother X, my brother, the Chi-Town.
Do you see AJ talking? Do you see AJ talking about debate him? And so, like, we're gonna see AJ, because I don't know. I got to figure out what you against and what you for, so I can pick something just to get on your nerves. And I'm gonna have too much fun doing it. So just so you know, you fit this challenge, and I'm not running from it, AJ. So show up.
Ooh.
Hit me up. Challenge accepted. Throw down. We can throw down right here.
Challenge accepted.
You know what, brother?
Digital squared circle. This is where it goes down at.
Brother X, I'm just going to say one thing. Now, I'm not going to call out the name, but you wanted me to debate a female, and I said, hell no. But maybe Topaz is up to the challenge. You might want to ask her in the background if she's up for
type
debating.
It in the back check, because I want to know. I might, because, I get bored easily. So, why not?
She might be the woman you're looking for. That's all I'm saying.
See, that's another thing. I'm more adventurous. Ruby's more adventurous in real life. I'm more adventurous with books and stuff. So like, it's a balance. It's a good combination.
Well, I'll tell you this. This is what I'll say, just like I tell everybody, because most of the debates come via request. Either
Right.
someone asked me about a particular debate, or they asked me, can I get, X person to debate Z person? That's kind of how it works.
Right.
So if you want to debate, hit me up.
I'm open to it,
And let me know who you want to debate. If you have any opponents in mind, or you talk to somebody, just let me know and I'll set it up. That's kind of what we do here. So, just hit me up.
Now,
That's all.
SKC.
I know you had the league, so do I have to have like a whole team? Because it's really just
no. You gotta
okay. Because I don't know.
You gotta have a whole
Nobody
team.
asked me to be on their team, X. I don't know. All right, I'm out here by myself now, but I'm open to it if somebody wanted to debate
Yeah,
me.
well, actually, we slowed down. We've
I
slowed down. We've slowed down quite a bit. It's kind of come to a lull. It's kind of run its course, but I'm still doing them. I'm still doing debates. I'm probably going to do a couple debates per month, but I've got other stuff. I've got other stuff going on. Like running an operation. Because I run my own business, so it's kind of hard for me to do all the setting up. It takes a lot to set up a lot of debates, because one time we were doing 2 and 3 and 4 debates per week, and it's hell setting them all up, because you're calling folks, you're writing folks, you're checking with this person, you're checking with that person. So I'm kind of glad it's kind of slowed down a little bit. Even though it's wintertime, my season is somewhat slow, but even with that, I don't miss sending out 50, 60, 70 emails per day out to
look
people.
emails and
I don't
see
miss that.
match up with what and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So you're the one doing the end result. Yeah, that's a lot.
I don't miss that shit at all. I just don't. I don't miss it. And Lady Ruby versus Lady Jessica, that's already happened.
Yeah,
Brother
you missed
Supreme.
it. Where
That's
have you
already
been,
happened.
SKC?
I have made that happen.
Now, to be fair, hold on. So it was on Jessica X's challenge day, okay? And to be fair, like overall, I might disagree with her smaller points, but on a grander scale, we're not really on opposite teams or opposite sides. So people were scared of getting up against Jessica X on challenge day. So I said, I'm here. So, all right, fine. I'll get up there to get the women, comfortable, realize no one's going to chop your head off if you debate Jessica X. Let me go up there and what do we disagree on? Okay, we disagree on colorism is real. Okay, let's do that. I was not prepared. I did lose. I'm not trying to pay for myself. I did lose, but to be fair, I forgot how the debates went. So, like, with your opening statement, right? It's like, oh, I'll just give a generalized opening, and then I thought I had my couple rounds. I didn't realize I forgot that my opening statement's supposed to be an argument round, and I had to go first. Man, I was not prepared at all.
Yeah, if you're the affirmative, you have to be ready.
Yeah, but see, I was just trying to help brother and sister out. They could have taken it easy on me, but no, that's not what happened. So I'm just saying, you missed the debate. It did already happen.
Well, at least you did it.
Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know. I mean, like, I haven't really heard her say anything that I just so vehemently disagree with that I need to debate her. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, she was here. She was here.
She was there.
She debated. She debated with Lady Ruby, and I believe she debated someone else too that night.
Yeah, there's like one or two other women who went up. And so my plan worked, right? I wanted to inspire someone to open them out.
Everybody has been here. That's what I keep telling people. Everybody has been here.
So did she debate any of the swirlers that's always mad at her? Because they annoying, and so therefore, like, did any of them?
I'm trying to think. The last girl she debated, I don't know if she identified as a swirler. I'm not sure.
She was like a divest. I think she was a divestment person. I think she was. It was something like that. Well, she was on the black men ain't shit rhetoric. That's for sure. I know that much. So.
Because
All right.
I don't even remember. I remember she debated quite a few people, and I know Lady Ruby was one of them. And I know she
Right.
debated, I think, another girl, and I don't know if she was a swirler or a divester or whatever the hell they call it themselves these days. I don't
Well,
even
I
remember.
asked to be petty because I had my own issue with them. But
Yeah, I don't
so
know.
yeah, I'm using your platform to be petty.
Yeah,
Hey,
well,
I mean, I said
it's
the
been
same thing.
it's been
Brother X
done
tried to ask
before.
me about it. Brother X tried to ask me about, well, can swirling women be classic? I was like, let me
Nope.
just say this. Like, I'm
No,
not
because by
saying
definition, they're just now relevant. So they have
Mm.
not transcended against time. So no, they cannot.
So, so even if they have, say, they have a white husband,
Nope.
and they got kids and all that kind of stuff, and they ain't out there shaking it, they ain't the club,
No,
they ain't in the club, they
because
still
that's
ain't.
not all. No, that's the minimum. Like that's how you get like to start on the path of being classic. That's not all that's required. Once you do all of those are positive things where you're not like out here contributing to the dysfunction, you also then have to be able to do that over different periods of time. If you take your personality and your actions right now, can you place that in different time periods throughout history and then possibly in the future and still be relevant and help and positive? If you cannot, you are not classic. That is the definition of classic. When you think about classic, think about fashion. That one classic piece, you can use it for any type of
that's what I use.
yeah, exactly. Any group of time, and you could put other things with it to make it relevant, but it still has a place. And if you can't do that, see, swirling and divestment is new now. It's not. It's now. You can't put that in anything in the past. So no, by definition, they cannot be classic. Sorry, y'all mad? Change.
See, now this is what I said. This is what I said. I didn't say, I said, listen, I am going to say swirling and divestment is different than someone who happens to marry someone who is non black because they live in a
Right. That
country
is
that
different.
is right. And so they didn't go out of their way to look
Right.
for a non black person, to reject their own, to try to scrub out their bloodline because
Because
of
one
a
of it's
bunch
a
of
reaction, and the first version that you said when they just happen to date somebody or marry somebody that's not their same race, that's not a reaction to pain.
right,
Like the second one is a reaction to pain, so therefore it's inappropriate because you're supposed to cope with that, heal, and then find the person that's better for you, which may still be
right,
in your culture, but it's just you. This person wasn't right.
right,
So if you happen to date somebody and you find somebody and they just happen to not be in your culture, you still found your other half. It's not going to be 100% we all date only the same race. There's going to be some people that dibble and dabble across the line, and that's fine. It just can't happen in mass. It can't be
right,
every single person.
right. Like,
There's a
a
whole
woman does
study
not
out there
reject
that
her own
says that.
culture.
Exactly. There's a whole study out there that says by 2060, everybody's going to look like Boris Kojo and what's his wife name?
Oh, I know who you're talking about. I don't remember her name.
Yeah, they're saying everybody's going to look like that, like light brown skin with green eyes, if we keep all the race mixing, right? Which may not be a bad thing, but here's the thing. It still is not going to be 100%. That just would be the majority. So the point of
Mhm.
all of this that I'm saying, right, like, is that part of my job is looking into the future based on our current, behaviors and suggesting things. If y'all don't want that to happen, if you don't want to be wiped out, then you can't do it in mass. Let the people who actually find love with somebody who just happens to not be of their race, let them date out. But if if you're just doing it out of spite, you're not going to get what it is that you think you're looking for because you're doing it with a spiteful attitude. You're going to get the same type of people that you attract in the previous race because you haven't changed anything.
Mm.
Can I answer L. Nixon's non-question? Because I actually have his question. I get exactly what you're asking, L. Nixon. Um, right. So he says basically what he's saying is that you can basically be sending too many mixed messages to kids when you
Yes.
have conflicting cultures inside the home, conflicting religions, cultures, whatever it is.
Yes.
And so I will say this. If one person, so the man or the woman, does not have a strong tie to a culture or to a religion, but the other does, you have a better shot at mixing between ethnicities or cultures for that reason, right? Because there isn't the conflict. Now, very, very, very rarely do I see
mixing.
people. Very rarely do I see people who have two different cultures and two different religions come together in the same household and not create that confusion or not kind of create a low key war between trying to make the kid pick which one's right or which one's better. Or, well, the mom says, no, we're definitely going with your father's for you. But then, the kids feel like they're rejecting mom. Is when both parents are open to exploring both religions, both ethnicities, both cultures in general, and both like the household gives fair balance to both. If the household isn't giving fair balance, knowledge, education, pride, respect to both, then yeah, it can absolutely be confusing for kids and create identity disorders, specifically where the kid over identifies in very dysfunctional ways with the part of their culture, ethnicity, or religion that is not being embraced in the home. And like, you see that a lot with like little white girls, for example, or biracial girls who are raised by white mothers and never get to embrace their Black side. And then what do? As soon as they become sexually active, they get run through by a bunch of Black guys, and they are the little beat up dolly of the group of Black girls. Why? Because they are over identifying with that side. They are desperate to be embraced and accepted by that side, but no one's ever taught them anything about their culture or what it means to be Black in any way. So they go looking for it in all the wrong ways.
I hope that answered your question. But I'm gonna wrap this up in a few minutes. But I want to say this, but before we go, and then I'll let you ladies have your parting shots. I believe that there's probably a lot more classic women out there, than we think it is. For the simple fact of what Lady Ruby said earlier, that they in the house, they knitting sweaters, they ain't in the club, they doing that kind of shit. So it's a lot more of them probably out there than we think there are. And likewise, there's probably a lot more not so classic women out there than we think they are. But ultimately, what I think is going to happen in the long run, as the amount of classic women kind of diminish and become more of a commodity, I think more of those women will find themselves, getting themselves hitched up, as opposed to the not so classic women, because I think that is what I think that's what turns the crank of brothers nowadays. You know what I'm saying? I think that's what turns their crank. A woman who's more traditional, a woman who's, more classic. And I think that's what turns the cranks of most brothers. And the not so traditional women, I think they're going to find themselves left out in the cold, even the ones who are somewhat younger, because you said something earlier, Lady Ruby. You said that one of your friends is like, she's like a classic woman and she got married at 38. Do you know how many young non-classic women he passed over to get to that damn near 40-year-old classic woman? That says a lot. That says a lot. All right. That
and
says
the fact
a lot.
that she was still waiting and available in marriage material means she didn't go along with like the trends.
Nope. She was a virgin by choice, not because of religion, but she was saving herself for marriage.
She deserves some accolades for how hard that would be, because most lesser women would have just given in and been like, okay, maybe I need to do what everybody else doing, So like that's the whole point. That's what makes her a classic, is because she didn't just give in to what was popular. She stayed the course and she got rewarded for it. Now she's an exception. Everybody at 38 can't just get a husband like that, but she can.
Oh, hell no.
Different. Right. And that's the point. That's the point. She stayed the course.
Yeah. And I think that, we're going to see more of that. Even if we don't see rise in marriages, I think the little between 20 and 30% of us that do get married, I think that those are going to be the ones that manifest. I think the marriages that's going to manifest now are going to be between, the quote unquote classic people. It's not just going to be the any old body, I just want to marry you because you want to marry me. I don't think that's going to be the case anymore. I think the people that find themselves married are going to be the more classic, people. And definitely it's going to be the classic women because, you would have to be a classic woman to not, be on Snapchat with your ass out or, be 55 years old and you still walking around with booty choker shorts and shit.
Yeah,
So,
that just don't sound fun. That don't sound like something I want to do. Listen, and then the women who do that, they try to describe it and they try to be all energetic when they say it. That don't make it sound fun. It still does not sound like fun. It still sounds like a lot of extra work. So, just cut it out.
And it sounds like, you are trying to catch a ship that has already sailed. I mean, it with all of us, especially with women. I mean, once you get a certain age, certain ships have left the dock already. All right.
So, Ruby, the clinical term for somebody that is behind by several years, right? In this case, it would be decades.
It is. You know what, though? You know how they're saying 30 is a new 20, right?
No.
In our community,
30 is the same 30 it's always been.
No,
it's
just the same 30
it's
always been. But you know what it is? Here's the thing. And, we're the canary in the coal mine. So whatever hits general population hits us worse, right? So our 40-year-olds are walking around still trying to be 16. And I'm talking about both men and women. And that's why we have...
They look what? They look what, Ruby? Say the clinical term.
Listen. I'm not gonna diagnose them. You know why? Because here's the thing, right? So you think about what is abnormal behavior. Abnormal behavior is deviating from the norm.
Right, because everything around you says to do a certain thing. Right. You deviate. Now, but wait, Ruby, there's a bell curve because there's the ones who are deviating because they got the right answer, and there's the ones that are deviating because they are what? It starts with an R, Ruby. Come on. Say it. Throw it out there.
No. Why are you trying to set me up? No, you ain't catching that soundbite from me. I already know someone.
I know.
Soundbite from me. Good luck.
I do mess with Ruby sometimes. I just try to get her. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Nope. Ain't gonna be me today. I already know someone's trying to hear me mess up so they can put it on their stream. I already know. Not gonna be me.
Trying to avoid the sound bites.
Yes, sir.
Right.
I appreciate you ladies coming on. Any parting shots before we peel up out of here?
Well, it's Ruby's day, so I'm gonna defer to her first. I'll go after her.
Okay. Well, I'll say this. And again, I know sometimes this is why I'm not very popular because I am balanced. So I'm going to say this, right? Again, absolutely agree. We need more classic women. We need more traditionally minded women. But I'm going to tell you something as someone who is more traditionally minded and more classic, right? There's about 3/4 of the mindsets, the male mindsets that I receive on a daily basis in this space are not husband material, in my opinion. Right. Because when you are a traditionally minded woman, when you are a classic woman, for example, right. So you don't spread your legs all easy and everything. Right. A guy who turns around and says, well, I wouldn't take you on a second date if you didn't sleep with me on the first one. Cool. Have a good life. Right. So you got to recognize that if you're looking for a particular type of woman, particular types of qualities from women, right, i.e., you want a classic woman, right, then when you demand non-classic behavior from a woman, she's not going to give it to you if she's a classic woman. Okay. And if that's what you're demanding and those are your standards, that's cool. You are all free and you should have your own standards, but just recognize what your standards are going to get you, because ultimately what you need to do is change your standards in the opposite way. And the woman who's going to sleep with you on the first date, that's not wife material. So you're not looking to take her on a second date. Yeah. And the woman who says, no, sorry, I'm not like that. I don't spread my legs for, random casual get to know you conversation, bro. Sorry. That's that woman that you might want to be like, let me look into this a little bit further. Right. So that's what you got to recognize. You can't hold personal ideals and personal needs and wants that are in direct conflict with the kind of woman that you're hoping to receive and think you're going to receive her. So, there are few. There are far between. That is absolutely right. And they are only looking for the guys that are few and far between with the right kind of mindset, who are willing to hold themselves to particular standards until they find that one. So if you want to be that one, you've also got to change your behavior from now, so that way you're husband material. So when you find her, she feels that husband material radiating from you, and she wants to be part of that train that you're driving. So I just wanted to say all that. Otherwise, thank you very much for having me, Brother X. It's always great. I love your questions. Love your questions. I missed your questions so much. I'm hoping, at some point you put together a woman panel, get a bunch of us up here to, speak on something.
Nice.
I miss this energy. I miss this energy. I love your questions. I do.
Yeah, well, you're always welcome here, Lady Ruby. You already know what it is, so you're always welcome here.
Thank you, sir.
Always. Lady Topaz, any parting shots?
First of all, Classic Ruby's amazing, right? And so I am happy that I was able to hop up there with her, because I wouldn't miss an opportunity to just mess with her a little bit. P.S. Come by my channel, because where you been. Anyway, the point
I don't know where it is now.
See, what kind of you know what, Ruby? I'm gonna email you after this. Don't worry about it, because
do
that's
that.
Not the right answer. Okay. So I do want to say that, like, when y'all think about the word classic, just think about something that you can use, and it's not confined by time. And so when you think about that, about a terminology, that would be a woman who is able to have foresight and also be able to implement information learned from previous events in our culture. So I do think that there are classic women out there, but they get marginalized, because the women who are trendy right now get the most popularity. They get the most attention. There's a whole lot of panels that are happening to disparage the behavior of the women that y'all are paying attention to. But the best way to handle that would be to ignore those women and take from them the thing that drives them, their motivation, which will be attention. You take the attention away from the women that you don't like because their behavior is very trendy and only applicable to right now. You're teaching them that they have a culture of men who are willing to look to the past, the future, as well as the present. And so they will have to adapt. If you extinguish all of the attention that you give them, they're going to clamor for your attention, and then they're going to figure out by the ones that you uplift and praise. Now, I'm not saying that y'all should just be devoted to me and Classic Ruby, but what I am saying is that pick the woman that you agree with, the woman that you feel like is a good example, and you uplift her instead of admonishing the woman that you don't, because you're still giving them attention. That means women who you do agree with are not being heard. So I am on record saying the behavior is going to change in our community based on the actions of the men, because no matter what these women are saying, they can make all of the slut walks, all of the anthems that they feel like making. All of that comes down to still getting men's attention, which means y'all are still in charge. That's not me saying that you're responsible for everything, that you did it, that it's your fault. All that is me saying that you hold the cards to change. And that's a good thing. Why would change not land in the lap of the gender that is the strongest? Okay? So that's actually respect. But you have to be willing to see it that way. And that only comes from self-esteem. So what I'm saying to you guys is, y'all want to see more women who are considered to be classic? Pay more attention to the women that you see doing classic things. Ignore the women that you see doing trendy things, because then you will starve them out and they will have no choice but to get in line. It does work. I've seen it happen. I can promise y'all that it will work. So that's my parting thoughts.
I'm sorry, brother. 1 second, really quick. I have to answer an objection. I know that what she said is going to get, right? Because men are going to go, women don't wear weave for men. They wear weave for other women. Women don't do this for men. They do it for other women, right? You hear that answer a lot. And I'm going to answer real quick.
But it's irrelevant, because that ain't got nothing.
No.
I know you know. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
It's relevant. On an evolutionary level, it's relevant.
Oh, Lord, no evolution, Ruby. We're talking about now.
No, it is. Now I'm going to explain why.
You're not about to teach evolution course right quick.
No,
evolutionary course. What we disagree on, because she always want to do evolution. I'm like, no. Look,
because that's what drives
So
them.
they got to deal with right now, and then we'll get to.
I am dealing with right now. Just literally everything
all right, go ahead.
with right now. I'm explaining to y'all why people do what they do. So why do women want to impress other women and do all this stuff for women? Because that's how women
asked
compete.
that, Ruby, but okay.
No, because men will. Trust me, I've heard it a billion times. And why do women compete with each other? Because they're trying to get to the top slot. Why? Because the woman who's in the top slot has the first access to the top man. So it still always comes down to, even if you're saying women are doing this to impress other women, they are. But why? Because when they impress other women, they get to the top slot, they get what? The top men. They get dibs to the top men. Women are always trying at the end of the day to have access to the top men, to the most loving men, to the best men. Right. So it's still always driven to the men, because at the end of the day, women are going to stop putting little Miss Thoughty Instagram at the top slot if all the men at the top reject that. Right. Because now the women know, oh, that's not at the top anymore. Okay. So at the end of the day, I've heard that answer a million times. Topaz is 1,000,000,000% correct. And that's straight respect. And men don't realize the power that they still have to this day, no matter what these women are saying.
And the power they're going to keep.
Women.
That's not something that women can take from them. It's not possible. If men wake up today and say, no, I'm not dealing with this, women are going to have to get in line. So the only reason women have power now is because it was given to them. It was allowed. And I'm not saying that it's men's fault. What I'm saying is that a behavior that they did allowed a certain thing to happen. Women should not have taken that opportunity. They should not have, but they did. And so now, knowing so, you have the power to correct it. So I don't know, Brother X, do you hear like what I'm saying? Like, does that make sense to you as a man? Do I sound like I'm blaming y'all?
No,
Okay.
it doesn't sound like you're blaming. The argument that you ladies are making, that I'll give you a short synopsis of what I'm hearing from both of you. That the reason why women are doing what they're doing because men allow it, basically.
True, because men are the stronger gender, so everything is about what they allow. So it's the power that you have available that you don't know, that you have been tricked into believing that you don't have. And I just want to wake up and realize you still have it. And it cannot be taken from you. It's not possible.
And they reward it too, right? Because who's making all the money, right? The Instagram thoughties, the sugar babies, all these sluttiness is rewarding right now. So they're rewarding it, right? They're allowing it and they're rewarding it. That's why it exists.
So the hoes are winning, is what y'all are saying. The hoes are winning.
No, they are
the hoes winning.
No, listen. Okay, so this is my view, right? So life would be considered as the 800-meter dash. Like, so the hoes win up either the sprint down the first straightaway. They might even still be in the lead for the first lap, but by that second lap, they gonna realize that they still losing, because then a Kenyan just pops out of nowhere and dusts everybody. So that's my view.
All right. Well, I appreciate both of you ladies. You got to hit me up, Lady Topaz.
Okay.
So I can get together with you and the brothers, and Lady Ruby. You already know what it is. I don't want this to be the last time you come through. I miss you coming. I miss you coming by the channel. So it was good to have you up here tonight. Thank you for coming. Once again, everybody. Let me go ahead and do a few programming notes, because when y'all leave, I'm just gonna close out. So I might as well do these shits now. Once again, some programming notes for you folks. Next week, we will have the one and only Dr. Lorenzo T. Neal will be in the house. And y'all know that Dr. Neal is a pastor at New Bethlehem Church in Mississippi. And he will be here, and he will be talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly in the black church. So you probably don't want to miss that one. Then the next day, my man will be here. Brother K.I.T., Brother Keep It Techie will be in the house, and he will be talking all things techie. I know y'all already know about Brother Keep It Techie. He has his own channel as well as a website, and y'all also know that Brother Keep It Techie is the official timekeeper of the T.P.O.T debates. So make sure you have your black behinds here next week, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on the T.P.O.T YouTube page. Once again, I want to thank everybody for coming out. Looks like we've lost Lady Ruby already, but I appreciate Lady Topaz for coming through tonight. Also my guest of honor, Lady Ruby, for coming through tonight as well. I appreciate all the cash apps and all the super chats. If I missed any, don't be mad at me. Y'all know I'm old. Sometimes I don't catch up to the shit. I ain't got my glasses on. I can't see shit. But I appreciate the support, man, as always, because I appreciate all of you. All right. So, with that, I will leave you, good folks, with 3 words, like I always do. Open your mind.
House of power. House of power. House of power. House of power.
And so a community is where you control your police, you control your commerce, you control your education, you control your house. We don't control none of that. We live in a hood. Huh? Well, what about the Negroes that get out? Oh, well, say, my cousin, they say he's a multi-millionaire, almost got $1 billion.
The Proper Thought
3 PhDs, working on 2 more. Driving down the street in Chicago in his Rolls Royce, enjoying himself, and he hears these sirens, look through the mirror and see this cop car flashing lights. He squeezed the steering wheel, man. Heart beats fast. Because he knows the price of a Negro, what it could be. And then when that cop car passed him by, he says, thank God he wasn't after you in the first place, punk. That Negro thing you can't get away from. It's universal. They wasn't coming after you. With all your millions, with your Rolls Royce, with your PhD, didn't help. That's the hood. Why do you think you never pick up the paper 3 weeks over and over and see white families travel? You think of the thousands of black cops in America. Why don't you see white families smiling as black cops shot my loved one 40 times in the back of the head? Why do you think black cops are that? You think they're more spiritual? Think they're better? No! They got enough sense to know that white folks ain't gonna tolerate it. And I will stop in our neighborhood when we decide we will not tolerate it. Now, if we was organized, which is hard to organize people who are just gonna run crazy and you don't know you're crazy. But if we were, with the money we have, and the many people who would come to our aid that don't know what it's like to be a Negro, and we said, look, we saying, if we don't get a federal law to deal with police brutality, that any time a cop or anybody carry a gun, have to have a license just like you do to drive a car. And if you use it wrongly, you'll lose your license. And if it's upheld, you can never work again as a cop or a store guard or a private detective. How do you get Congress to push that through? Well, you take your economic power and you call on your friends, black, white, young and old, and say, this coming Christmas, if we don't have a federal law to outlaw police brutality by law, then we call them for a nationwide boycott of Christmas and it'll start on Thanksgiving. Well, let me tell you what that means. 79% of all retail in America happens between Thanksgiving and Christmas. People stay in business all year, lose money just for Christmas, huh? Well, what happens now? South Fifth Avenue, Toys R Us, Sears and Roebuck, Westinghouse. They will get the bill, and all they got to do is make one phone call and say, Harry, that's the senator, I want that bill pushed through in 3 days. Okay, it's an economic thing. It's that simple. But we have the power, but the system has wiped us out so bad.
Hours of power, hours of power, hours of power.
Happy. Santana Lincoln 6. Go ahead. Clear suspect down, 10-4. That's 10-4. The officer's code 4. We have one suspect that's been shot.
Open your mind.
Only from T.P.O.T. Media. Open your mind.